Chapter 578. The matter finally came to an end. The 4 great emperors and the 4 former emperors were dead, and the remaining forces were nothing to be afraid of. Tianyan immediately ordered Renlong to send troops to attack the 4 empires. At the same time, he also sent out a lot of demon beasts to attack the 4 empires. This meant that they immediately had 5 territories, but it wasn't easy to manage them, so they had to constantly send people to manage them. There were so many cities, and if they didn't manage them well, the difficulty would skyrocket. Fortunately, many forces didn't dare to attack at will. They didn't want to follow the footsteps of the 4 empires. Even the 4 empires couldn't defeat the 4 empires, let alone those independent empires. Therefore, seeing that the defense of the 4 empires was weak, they didn't dare to attack at will. All the empires remained silent, even the most powerful one. It was undeniable that the first empire was the strongest, but no matter how strong they were, they didn't have 8 Spirit King stage powerhouses, so they could only remain silent. At the same time, Tianyan also ordered a lot of Heavenly Cloud's mansion's men to take over the imperial capital. He had contributed a lot, and if he didn't give them some territory, then he would be too ignorant. When they took over the imperial capital, many cultivators volunteered to join them, mainly because the Heavenly Cloud's mansion managed the Heavenly Cloud's continent quite well. So after they took over the imperial capital, many cultivators chose to join them. There were also many extraordinary cultivators who chose to join the Heavenly Cloud's mansion. Although they didn't officially declare themselves as an imperial force, there was no problem with them becoming an imperial force. Now all they needed was the establishment of the imperial capital, and Tianyan would become the great emperor. There are still a lot of qualified experts. Tianyan looked at the situation of the main quest. Most of the quests had been filled, and only the Void Spirit stage was left. There was a serious gap in this area, even if the number of people reached the standard, but the loyalty was not up to the standard. In any case, these things were left to them to handle. He didn't want to get involved in these things. He didn't have time to manage these things, and power wasn't important to him at all. These so-called great emperors held the power, and he controlled everyone's life and death, which was more important than anything else. After settling down, Tianyan entered a cultivation room, and finally began to calculate all the benefits. Now that he had broken through to the first layer of Spirit King stage, he could finally open the gift bag and see what was inside. Previously, he hadn't had the time to pay attention to the situation in this area. He had been running around nonstop to deal with any potential problems. He was the only one who could deal with a Spirit King stage cultivator, so he had to kill them himself. Activate the level 61 gift pack. Successfully open gift pack 61, reward. 80x EXP card, 5x Crazy Point card, 5x Sin card, 10x Mastery card. Level 71 gift pack. At the same time, all the lucky draw roulette will be activated, and there will be one more accessory type, and the drop rate will be increased. After the activation, a large number of brand new experience cards piled up. In an instant, there were many brand new experience cards in the shop, but their prices were also extremely high. Accessory type? Tianyan paused for a moment. He recalled that he rarely dropped accessories. After obtaining an accessory once, it was almost impossible for it to drop again. In fact, many cultivators had accessories on them: rings, bracelets, and necklaces. The accessory set that Tianyan had dropped once before was the power accessory set. So far, he had been wearing it, and there was no other accessory that he could replace it with. This made him feel very strange. Why didn't it drop? It seems that the drop rate of this accessory type is very low. Thinking about it carefully, Tianyan felt that it was really lucky for him to drop it before. Even if he killed a Spirit King stage cultivator later, it would be very difficult to drop this accessory, even if it was an ordinary accessory. However, none of them dropped. All of them were common equipment, piled up in piles and baskets. Now that the drop rate has increased, I should be able to get a little more, right? Tianyan shook his head. But this gift bag was very normal, not too good, not too bad either. Anyway, this is an extra gift. It would be best if he could get it, but if not, he can't force it. Tianyan immediately checked the other data on his body. Soon, all the data appeared in front of him, and he looked at it line by line. Breaking through to the next level requires 3 billion EXP. Tianyan frowned. Although he knew that it would be difficult to break through to the next level, he was still shocked when he saw the amount of EXP 3 billion EXP. When he was at the peak of Void Spirit stage, he only needed 5 billion EXP. Now that it had doubled to 3 billion EXP, it was really scary. But then he thought about those former Emperor stage cultivators, who only broke through to the 4th layer of Spirit King stage after hundreds and thousands of years of cultivation. Tianyan didn't need that much time now, so he was quite satisfied. Tianyan immediately shook his head. In fact, as long as there were more Spirit King stage cultivators, he would be able to break through to the next level. Killing Spirit King stage cultivators at this level would allow him to level up faster. 27 million crazy points. 23 million sin points. This should be enough for 1 million sin points. Tianyan's eyes lit up. After reaching 1 million sin points, he could exchange for a better set of sin set. Tianyan immediately opened the sin set shop again, and 2 sets of sin set with the best attribute effect were listed in front of him. Evil Spirit set requires level 50. After equipping, the wearer can transform into evil spirits at any time. All strength increased by 50 times, defense increased by 50 times, and speed increased by 10 times. When in evil spirits mode, all attacks become long-range attacks, can attack anything within 10 miles, and has a burning effect. Critical hit rate increased by 20%. Price, 1 million sin points. Sword Saint set. Level 50 equipment. The wearer can transform into a sword saint. All swords within 10 miles of the wearer can be controlled by the wearer. Up to 10,000 swords can be controlled by the wearer. Sword array. 10,000 swords unite as one. Consumes 100,000 crazy points to detonate all weapons to kill the enemy. Price 1 million sin points. Which of the 2 top-grade equipment sets should he trade for? Tianyan frowned. It was really hard to decide. It should be said that they each had their own merits based on the situation. Evil Spirit set is powerful enough, and Sword Saint set is crazy enough. After all, Sword Saint set can control all weapons within the Holy Tool tier. Even if it has an owner, it can forcibly seize it. Chapter 579. While the outside world was busy, Tianyan was walking in the Heavenly Cloud's imperial capital. After a period of time, the whole situation had changed a lot, and it could be said that the establishment of the Heavenly Cloud's imperial capital was complete. With him in charge, no other forces dared to attack the Heavenly Cloud's imperial capital, especially after the 4 empires were eradicated. It could be said that Tianyan's prestige rose to the extreme. However, it was said that there was a very powerful king in the Heavenly Dragon Empire, but no one said that the Mansion Lord of Heavenly Cloud's mansion was very powerful. After all, Tianyan was there as a king, so the news was naturally biased towards the Heavenly Dragon Empire. Even so, those who knew more about the situation would know that Tianyan also had another identity, which was the Mansion Lord of Heavenly Cloud's mansion. However, the most famous one was still the king of the Heavenly Dragon Empire. This made many people think that the Heavenly Dragon Empire was very powerful and had a super expert, not the Heavenly Cloud's mansion. Tianyan didn't clarify this misunderstanding, and he didn't need to. In short, it was enough to let the outside world know that the Heavenly Dragon Empire and Heavenly Cloud's mansion weren't that easy to bully. Task completion requirements. 3 of 5 Void Spirit experts, Core Transformation experts and Spirit Core experts, and build your own Imperial capital. Because there is a Spirit King expert, all requirements are reduced by half. The condition of the mission was changed when he broke through to the Spirit King stage. In the past, he needed 50 Core Transformation experts, so the difficulty was obvious. Of course, as the reputation of the Heavenly Cloud's mansion increased, more and more people joined, including many Core Transformation experts. Therefore, the real data was far more than what was currently available, and it did not just refer to the number of missions that were presented. For example, there were more than 30 people who had more than 200 loyalty, but the task only showed that it was enough. Because of the halving effect, Most of the cultivators met the requirements. After such a long period of cultivation, a large number of resources were used, and many cultivators' cultivation soared. In the past, there were many cultivators who were very talented, but because of the lack of resources, it was difficult for them to improve. Now that the situation has greatly improved, many cultivators rushed from core condensation to spirit core, and spirit core cultivators rushed to core transformation. In particular, the Spirit sect and the Empyrean Terminus sect, which had the strongest foundation, had the most cultivators successfully breaking through. Only the Void Spirit stage was more difficult. It would take a longer time to break through. We're still short of these two. How do we fill this gap? Etianyan frowned. He really wanted to finish this main quest as soon as possible, so that he could know what the next main quest was. Could it be directly becoming a divine nation? He couldn't rule out this possibility, but the reward he would get after completing the mission was what he coveted the most. Brother E, we are here to see you. Runlong and Renjiro walked over with a smile on their faces. Although the Heavenly Dragon Empire was still very busy, they still took the time to visit the Heavenly Dragon Empire. You two are here. Etianyan smiled and said, Are you here for the Heavenly Cloud's imperial capital? Yes, once the Heavenly Cloud's imperial capital is established, it will become an empire. You will be crowned as a great emperor at that time, Runlong said with a smile. At that time, not only our Heavenly Dragon Empire will come to visit, but the great emperors of other empires will also come to visit in person. Etianyan narrowed his eyes. Although many people only knew him as a king, the great emperors of these empires definitely knew what his real identity was. Is that so? Then it will be very lively here, Etianyan said with a smile. It was really a shocking scene to have more than a dozen great emperors come to visit, but they had to give him face. Etianyan's status was like the sun in the sky, and if they didn't come to visit him, they would be in big trouble. Of course it will be lively. This is a very rare opportunity. So many great emperors have ascended the throne, but none of them have been as lively as you. You can fight against 4 empires alone, and they have no choice but to come, Runlong said with a sigh. It's only been a few days, but you have already broken through to such a high level. It's really hard for us to catch up with you. That's right, Brother E. How did you cultivate? You are so much stronger than before. You can even kill Spirit King stage experts with ease. Renjiro's beautiful eyes flashed with endless surprise. Looking at them, Etianyan suddenly had an idea. Why don't you join my Heavenly Cloud's mansion and become my guest elders? They were all stunned as they didn't expect Etianyan to say that. That's not a problem. But what's the difference between joining and joining now? Renlong was a little confused. They had a good relationship with each other, and they would immediately come to help whenever there was trouble. There was no need for them to become guest elders at all. On the other hand, guest elders weren't as firm as their current allies. You don't have to worry about that. Are you willing to join my Heavenly Cloud mansion as a guest? Etianyan asked. He didn't care about the situation, he just wanted them to be his guest. Renlong and Renjiro looked at each other. They didn't know what Etianyan wanted to do, but they both nodded and said, Well, we will become your guest elders. Is that okay? Thank you, both of you. Etianyan laughed and said, From today on, you are Heavenly Cloud's mansion's guest elders. If Heavenly Cloud's mansion has any difficulties, please help us. Brother E, what's wrong with you? Did you cultivate too much? Renjiro's beautiful eyes were full of worry. How did things suddenly become like this? Etianyan alone was enough to fight the 4 empires, so why would he need their help? Unless Etianyan was no longer here. But even if he wasn't here, there was no need for him to become a guest elder. Even if he didn't become a guest elder, he would still come to help. It's nothing, it's nothing. Etianyan smiled and immediately heard a pleasant voice in his ear. Reward, 100 million EXP 500. 000 crazy points, 100. 000 SPS 100. 000 SPS. Ding. Reward, 100 million EXP, 500,000. 000 CPS, 100,000. 000 CPS, 100,000. 000 SPS. Reward, 100 million EXP, 500,000. 000 CPS, 100,000. 000 CPS, 100,000. 000 CPS, 100,000. 000 SPS. Reward, 100 million EXP, 500,000. 000 CPS, 100,000. 000 CPS, 100,000. 000 CPS, 100,000. 000 SPS. He thought he could complete the task immediately, but he didn't know that it was divided into several steps. Heavenly Cloud's imperial capital was already built, so he could get the reward immediately. Chapter 580. Originally, Tianyan wanted to cultivate a few Void Spirit stage powerhouses, but when he saw the Run siblings, he knew that they had a good impression of him, so he immediately wanted to drag them over. If he became a guest, it would be equivalent to joining the Heavenly Cloud's mansion. This loophole was also suitable for other cultivators, so it wouldn't be a problem for him to drag a few more ministers over. However, this task was divided into several steps, which were quite cumbersome. Fortunately, the EXP was not low, so it was better to complete this kind of task. Anyway, he could take it step by step, and in the end he could still get all the rewards. Brother E, what's wrong? Renjiro saw that Tianyan was smiling before, but now he was lost in thought, and she didn't know what he was thinking. One moment he was crazy, and the next moment he was serious. Renjiro didn't know what Tianyan was thinking. It's nothing, just thinking about something. Hurry up and go in. Tianyan welcomed them in, and he also went to prepare. The next step was to wait for the coronation ceremony. He didn't have to worry about this, he just had to wait in the palace. A few days later, a steady stream of cultivators from all over the world gathered here, and most of them came to witness this moment. The Heavenly Cloud's mansion wanted to hold a coronation ceremony for Tianyan and establish the Heavenly Cloud's empire. So many cultivators came to see it. Other empires also came from all over the world, and in just a few days, they quickly gathered in the Heavenly Cloud's imperial capital. On the day before the coronation ceremony, the entire Heavenly Cloud's imperial capital was extremely lively, and it was the most crowded since its founding. With so many cultivators gathered here, of course, it was very lively. The most important thing was that the powerhouses of the empires came to visit, which was the highlight of the event. On this day, Tianyan sat on the throne, looking at the powerhouses of the empires who came to visit him one by one. This humble one is Luo Yun Empire's great emperor Lu Yun, and I came to visit Heavenly Cloud's great emperor. This humble one is Xian Yun, great emperor of Whirling Cloud Empire, and I came to visit Heavenly Cloud's great emperor. This humble one is, one by one, the great emperors of the empires came in person, but not all of them were at the Spirit King stage. The great emperors of the lower-ranked empires weren't at the Spirit King stage, but they were at least at the Void Spirit stage. This wasn't surprising. It didn't mean that one had to be a Spirit King stage powerhouse to become a great emperor. However, their old ancestor should be a Spirit King stage powerhouse. Without a Spirit King stage powerhouse, they wouldn't be able to suppress an empire. The great emperors of the empires at the front were all at the Spirit King stage, and they were very respectful in front of Tianyan. Tianyan knew that they were being so respectful because he had destroyed the four great empires. If it was before this, they would definitely not have come. At most, some second and third rank forces would come over to congratulate him. Most of them wouldn't even bother with him. This was the importance of power. Tianyan smiled and welcomed them one by one. He never slapped a smiling person, so when the other party came over respectfully, he would definitely give him some face. Most of the great emperors of the empires had come in person, but the first and second ranked empires didn't come. They were the World Dragon Empire and the Heaven Primordial Empire. These two empires had been sitting firmly in the first and second position for thousands of years. According to the rumors, the World Dragon Empire had 5 kings, and the Heaven Primordial Empire had 4 kings. In fact, the Heaven Primordial Empire had 4 kings. Just the World Dragon Empire alone had 5 Spirit Kings, so they had the capital to be arrogant. The Heaven Primordial Empire was also the same. In comparison, the Netherworld Empire was just a piece of trash. In fact, the Netherworld Empire wasn't very strong, but the divine nations behind them were the strongest. Otherwise, with how arrogant they would have long been destroyed by the other empires. Most of the time, they didn't need to be strong. As long as they had a strong backing, it would be enough to suppress everything. As for the empires with 1 and 2 spirit kings, they also came to congratulate Yi Tianyun, but they still came to congratulate him. Great Emperor, except for the World Dragon Empire and the Heaven Primordial Empire, the other great emperors have come. Yi Qingxian whispered. I know. Yi Tianyun didn't care if they didn't come. As long as they didn't provoke him, he wouldn't kill them. When the other empires felt that the 2 empires didn't give them face, a voice came from outside the palace. The Heaven Primordial Great Emperor has come to congratulate you. An exciting news came from outside the gate. Many great emperors looked at the door with awe in their eyes. A handsome middle-aged man walked in from the outside. He walked step by step with his hands behind his back. His speed was neither fast nor slow, and every step he took seemed to integrate with the world. At this moment, it was as if he was the real protagonist, attracting everyone's attention and stealing the limelight from Yi Tianyun. The Heaven Primordial Empire's name was too famous, and even the third-ranked empires were too far away from it. Many people thought that the Heaven Primordial Empire wouldn't bother to come, but in the end the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor came in person, which surprised many people. It seems like he was shocked by Yi Tianyun's prestige. Heaven Primordial Great Emperor, 6th layer Spirit King stage, wearing high-grade sacred tool armor, and possesses the ancient god's bloodline. Martial arts, Heavenly Primordial Divine Palm, Tyrannical Dragon Art, etc. Weaknesses, none. Comprehensive combat power, 600 million, without ancient god's bloodline. Killing can obtain 6th layer Spirit King stage with ancient god's bloodline? Compared to the Dragon Clan bloodline, the ancient god bloodline was extremely overbearing. It was a few times stronger than the ordinary Dragon Clan bloodline. Only the true dragon race's bloodline can be compared to it. There are many bloodlines in this world, and the dragon race's bloodline is just one of them. There are other bloodlines that are stronger than the dragon race, such as the ancient god's bloodline. The ancient god's bloodline is actually a kind of divine blood. Whether it is recovery or explosive power, it is stronger than the dragon race. It is an extremely rare bloodline, unique to the Heaven Primordial Empire. I'm sorry I'm late. The Heaven Primordial Great Emperor smiled slightly and said, I didn't expect that the newly ascended Great Emperor would look so young. This is unexpected. Our generation is getting old, and we can't keep up with the pace. Don't say that. The Heaven Primordial Great Emperor is also young. He is only 40 years old, but he has already broken through to the Spirit King stage. He is really a monstrous genius. Yes. The Heaven Primordial Great Emperor also has the ancient god's bloodline. It is really hard to find an opponent. One by one, the great emperors of the Heaven Primordial Empire immediately greeted the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor. Suddenly, they felt that the main character of this coronation ceremony was not Yi Tianyun, but the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor. Chapter 581. Thank you, Heaven Primordial Great Emperor. It's my honor to be able to attend this coronation ceremony. Yi Tianyun said calmly. What ancient god's bloodline? What 6th layer Spirit King stage? As long as it doesn't cause any conflict with him, he doesn't care. Even if he has the ancient god's bloodline, he will still be killed by Yi Tianyun. The Heaven Primordial Great Emperor nodded slightly and didn't say anything. He then sat down on the seat beside him, followed by his entourage. Everyone's cultivation was not low. Their attitude was quite casual, as if they were here to attend Yi Tianyun's coronation ceremony. Yi Tianyun frowned. Do these guys really think that I'm invincible just because I'm a little polite? But thinking about it, as an empire that has been standing for many years, although Yi Tianyun has been in the limelight recently, it's not a big problem for him to deal with 4 empires. Therefore, they have the capital to be arrogant, unlike the other empires who flatter Yi Tianyun. This time, he was here to see the domineering new great emperor, to see what kind of standard he had. However, Tianyan was too lazy to care about it. As long as they don't provoke him, it's fine. After the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor sat down, his entourage immediately served him tea. During this time, he looked at Tianyan from head to toe and shook his head. So young, I wonder how strong his cultivation is. I heard that he also knows demonic arts. I'm afraid there's someone behind him? The Heaven Primordial Great Emperor didn't think that Tianyan has this kind of ability. It's possible that there's a super strong expert behind him that could suppress so many great emperors. Tianyan looked too young. Although his cultivation could make him look younger, there's something that can't be concealed, and that's his blood qi. The Heaven Primordial Great Emperor could feel that Tianyan was really young, and he didn't deliberately make himself look younger. To put it bluntly, he was just pretending to be young. However, the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor didn't mean to cause trouble. He just wanted to see what was going on with Tianyan. Great Emperor, it seems like the World Dragon Empire did not come. An old man said in a low voice. World Dragon Empire. The Heaven Primordial Great Emperor's eyes flickered. They had always wanted to surpass the World Dragon Great Emperor, but the gap between them was still too wide. The Empire's 5 kings weren't that easy to woo. It was already good enough that they had 4 kings. This was not the ghost world, so it was not easy to cultivate here. So having more than 4 Spirit King stage cultivators was already considered as heaven-defying. The key was whether their cultivation was strong or not. If they were both at the first layer of Spirit King stage, it would be really bad. For them to be so sturdy, it meant that their cultivation was not too low. At the very least, they were at the 5th or 6th layer. Some of them might even be at the peak level. While they were discussing, a summons came from outside. The envoy of the World Dragon Empire has arrived, the guard outside shouted. An envoy from the World Dragon Empire? When they heard the name World Dragon Empire, they thought that the World Dragon Empire's great emperor would come in person. They didn't expect that they would send an envoy. Immediately, a man walked in from outside. His cultivation wasn't high, he was only at the Void Spirit stage, but he looked very arrogant. He glanced at the participants around him, and he was surprised when he saw the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor. He didn't expect that the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor would come in person. Greetings, Heaven Primordial Great Emperor. The envoy came in front of the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor and bowed respectfully. He completely ignored the other great emperors, including the Spirit King stage Great Emperor. Well, the World Dragon Great Emperor didn't come, but he sent you to participate in the coronation ceremony? The Heaven Primordial Great Emperor felt that the World Dragon Great Emperor was too arrogant, but he had to admit that the World Dragon Great Emperor had the capital to be arrogant. If he did this, he would undoubtedly fall out with the Heavenly Clouds Empire, which was not a good choice. The Heaven Primordial Great Emperor thought that he wasn't afraid of the World Dragon Great Emperor, but he still wanted to make friends with the World Dragon Great Emperor. You will know this later. The World Dragon Empire's envoy said with a smile. After bowing to the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor, he turned around and went back to the aisle. He completely ignored the other great emperors, which made many great emperors unhappy. However, they could only swallow their anger. Who told them to be so weak? The Heaven Primordial Empire was the only Heaven Primordial Empire that the World Dragon Empire didn't care about. The World Dragon Empire's envoy was extremely arrogant, and he didn't put them in his eyes at all. Sure enough, after staying in this great empire for a long time, they became extremely arrogant. Tianyan's expression didn't change when he saw the envoy, but he was a little displeased in his heart. The World Dragon Empire's envoy looked at Tianyan without the slightest respect. His attitude towards the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor was much worse than his attitude towards the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor. It was as if the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor was the real Great Emperor, and Tianyan was only at the Void Spirit stage, which was the same as him. Then the envoy took out a scroll and spread it in front of Tianyan. The World Dragon Great Emperor requests that you don't ascend to the throne today. You must obtain our approval before you can ascend to the throne. You can ascend to the throne only after you have obtained our approval. His words caused an uproar. The World Dragon Empire was too arrogant. Why did they have to go to the heaven primordial great emperor to approve the ascension of the throne? The great emperors looked at each other in confusion. They had never encountered such a situation before. Why did the World Dragon Empire have to interfere with the ascension of Yi Tianyan? It was obvious that the World Dragon Empire didn't want Yi Tianyan to ascend to the throne immediately. Does that mean that I have to wait for the World Dragon Empire's approval before I ascend to the throne? Yi Tianyan looked at the envoy with an indifferent expression. Yes, this is the order of the World Dragon Great Emperor. Please go to the World Dragon Empire and make your decision. If you don't obey the order, don't blame the World Dragon Empire for not giving you face. The envoy's tone was cold. Although he was standing on the ground, he looked as if he was sitting on the throne. The World Dragon Empire didn't give Yi Tianyan any face. So many great emperors had come to congratulate Yi Tianyan. But the World Dragon Empire didn't give Yi Tianyan any face. Yi Tianyan raised his hand in the void, and an invisible force slapped the messenger away. Pa! The messenger was sent flying and hit several tables before he could stop. Who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like that? Yi Tianyan looked at the envoy coldly and said, You. How dare you hit me? I am the envoy of the World Dragon Empire. I represent the World Dragon Empire. Pa! Yi Tianyan slapped the envoy again. The envoy was pinned to the ground and couldn't move. Chapter 582. How dare a mere envoy act so arrogantly in front of him? To put it bluntly, even a dog from the World Dragon Empire dared to bark in front of him. It had to be said that the World Dragon Empire was responsible for letting an envoy act so arrogantly. If it wasn't for the World Dragon Empire, how could the envoy speak in such an arrogant tone? From the beginning, the envoy didn't put the World Dragon Empire in his eyes, and even ordered the World Dragon Empire not to ascend the throne for the time being. A dog of the World Dragon Empire. This sentence resounded throughout the hall and shocked many great emperors. Although the envoy was just an envoy, the World Dragon Empire was behind him. If it was them, they wouldn't dare to do such a thing. After all, it was equivalent to slapping the World Dragon Empire in the face. If they provoked the World Dragon Empire, it would be really troublesome. You. Wait for me to report this to the Great Emperor. How dare you disobey the World Dragon Great Emperor's order? A small empire without any foundation dares to act so arrogantly. When the time comes, the World Dragon Great Emperor will surely die. Yi Tianyan's eyes turned cold as he pressed his palm down on the envoy of the World Dragon Empire. Instantly, the envoy of the World Dragon Empire was flattened into meat paste. The Great Emperor's faces changed. It wasn't because of Yi Tianyan's strength. As long as their cultivation reached the Spirit King stage, they could easily crush a Void Spirit stage cultivator. The important thing was that Yi Tianyan had killed the envoy of the World Dragon Empire. As the saying goes, don't kill the envoy of the World Dragon Empire. Impulsive. The Heaven Primordial Great Emperor shook his head. Too impulsive. Too arrogant. It's normal for him to be a little arrogant. I'm afraid that he will become the enemy of the World Dragon Empire by killing the envoy of the World Dragon Empire. That's right. He might think that he is invincible just because he has a strong expert behind him. Although there are a lot of Spirit King stage cultivators in the 4 empires that were destroyed, they are just small fries. The old man next to him shook his head. Originally, the Great Emperor wanted to befriend him, but it seems that there is no need for that anymore. I'm afraid that this new empire will soon be destroyed. Well, if he had endured it for a while and went to the World Dragon Empire, he could still come back and ascend the throne. From the looks of it, he's angry because this envoy is too arrogant. The Heaven Emperor shook his head and said, This will only bring about the destruction of the country. Yes, look, so many empires are leaving. The old man sighed and glanced at Yi Tianyan, his eyes filled with mockery. He might seem arrogant, but he would know the consequences of being arrogant in the future. Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor, we will take our leave first, us too. We still have some matters to attend to in the empire, so we'll be taking our leave first. We are also. Many of the empire's factions and third-grade factions retreated. They didn't dare to stay here and wait for the World Dragon Empire to ascend the throne. This would definitely offend the Heavenly Clouds Empire, but they would rather offend the Heavenly Clouds Empire than the World Dragon Empire. The two of them were not on the same level, and they knew how to distinguish the pros and cons. Tianyan did not get angry, nor did he care about them. He just let them leave. This is too impatient. Provoking the World Dragon Empire will only result in death. That's right. Although the four empires are powerful, it would be a piece of cake for the World Dragon Empire to destroy them. Forget it, let's leave quickly. If we are late, it will be too late. The Heavenly Clouds Mansion will be finished. After leaving, everyone talked in private. They were originally here to congratulate the Heavenly Clouds Mansion, but now they decided to leave quickly. It would be too late if they were treated as the Heavenly Clouds Mansion's ally. Soon, only the Heavenly Dragon Empire was left in the huge temple. In the end, the Heaven Primordial Great Emperor shook his head and left. He was too lazy to talk to Tianyan, and his eyes were filled with disdain. The reason was simple. Everyone thought that the Heavenly Clouds Empire would be destroyed. Brother EU. Renlong smiled bitterly and shook his head. He didn't expect this to happen. Now that he was facing the behemoth of the World Dragon Empire, it would put him in a difficult position. Big Brother Ren, I know what you are thinking. You just want to compromise and go to the World Dragon Empire. Maybe they will let me come back and ascend the throne. Tianyan sneered and said, I'm afraid that the World Dragon Empire will make me their puppet, and I will have to listen to them in the future. Of the four empires that I eradicated, I reckon that a few empires are related to them, and are subordinate empires to them. Otherwise, why would they treat me like this? They have been sitting in this position for too long. Do they really think that they are invincible? It's too naive to think that everyone will listen to them. Tianyan's eyes flashed coldly. He didn't mind the war in this aspect at all. Now that he had enough power, they couldn't blame him for being ruthless. If that's the case, then there is no other way. Renlong shook his head and said, We will always be your strong support and fight with you until the end. Great Emperor Ren. The ministers behind Renlong looked at him in horror. They couldn't believe what they heard. This was the World Dragon Empire, not some third-grade faction in the corner of the world. You can't. If the World Dragon Empire attacks us, our Heavenly Dragon Empire will be finished. One by one, the ministers tried to persuade Tianyan. They felt that they shouldn't get involved in this mess. Without King Yi, do you think the Heavenly Dragon Empire will still exist? Renlong looked at them coldly and said, Although you are not swayed by your emotions, if you don't choose to stand by our side in the most critical moment, who will be willing to ally with you in the future? But the ministers still shook their heads. Only a fool would talk about loyalty at this time. They should say that it was their own fault. Who could blame them? If he lowered his head, then so be it. A man should know when to yield, or when to stand tall. So what if he became a puppet? At least he could live. We are willing to follow any instructions from the Great Emperor, let alone the World Dragon Empire. We are even willing to attack the Divine Nation. Yi Qingxian chuckled. Not only her, but the spirit race old ancestor and the others also nodded in agreement. Tianyan is the reason why they can have such a status. Whether it's reckless or courting death, they are willing to go through fire and water. Crazy. Crazy. The ministers felt that these people were not rational at all. They were a bunch of lunatics. Continue with the coronation ceremony and announce to the world that Heavenly Clouds Mansion has officially become an empire. Tianyan didn't say anything. He knew very well that he could see a lot of things from this. The Heavenly Dragon Empire was still an ally, and the people around him were still as loyal as ever. Chapter 583. After everyone left, Tianyan continued to hold the coronation ceremony. Everything went on as usual, regardless of what the outside world was talking about. When Tianyan put on the carefully crafted crown, it meant that he was crowned as the king. From now on, Heavenly Clouds Mansion officially belongs to Heavenly Clouds Empire, and I am the Heavenly Clouds Great Emperor. Tianyan's eyes flashed and he said coldly, This emperor will lead everyone to a more glorious future. The empire is not the limit, but a stronger divine kingdom. Greetings, Great Emperor. Everyone knelt on the ground and bowed deeply. But this process was only witnessed by the Heavenly Dragon Empire, and no one else from the other empires was present. For Yi Tianyan, the rest of the people didn't matter, only his own people mattered. It doesn't matter if others admit it or not, as long as the people around him agree with him, that's the most important thing. Stand up. Yi Tianyan motioned everyone to stand up, and everyone stood up with respect in their eyes. Even if Yi Tianyan did some stupid things, they still didn't choose to betray him. However, this was only on the surface. Many people who weren't firm enough chose to leave. And some cultivators who originally planned to live here also chose to leave. Since they had already offended the World Dragon Empire, it was normal for them to leave. Suddenly, the population quickly dropped by more than half, and some cities even ran away, not daring to stay here anymore. This situation also affected some cultivators who were not loyal to Yi Tianyan. On the one hand, they believed in Yi Tianyan, but when they saw so many people chose to leave, they wanted to follow them. In any case, the situation had become a mess, and those who should leave had left, and those who stayed were the most loyal. Ding! Successfully completed quest crown as Great Emperor. Reward: 100 million EXP, 500. 000 crazy points, 100. 000 SPS. Successfully accepted the final quest. Become the #1 Imperial Force. Reward: 2 billion EXP, 20 million crazy points, 2 million proficiency, assign anywhere, 2 million sin points, and the title, I am the Great Emperor. This was the true reward, the true completion of the mission. Who would have thought that they would have to become the #1 empire in order to complete this mission? Sure enough, this mission required one to be the strongest. Otherwise, there was no way to complete it. In the beginning, he had thought that it was just a simple matter of building an empire. Who knew that after completing it, he would realize that he had to become the strongest. The first one was like a small mission, just a little temptation, and after completing it, they would find out that it was just one of the missions. However, this wasn't bad either. At the very least, it was equivalent to gaining a few 100 million experience points. Why not? The strongest empire. It seems like even God can't stand the World Dragon Empire. Yi Tianyan smiled coldly. As long as he overthrew the World Dragon Empire, he would become the strongest empire. 2 billion EXP, 20 million crazy point, 2 million SPS value. It was really shocking. The reward was too generous. The main point was 20 million crazy points and 2 million SPS, which made him very excited. After Yi Tianyan became the Great Emperor, the news quickly spread out, and all the empires knew about it. They couldn't help but shake their heads, thinking that the Heavenly Clouds Empire was finished. Since the World Dragon Empire announced that it would become an empire by force, there wouldn't be a good ending for it. They could foresee the establishment of the Heavenly Clouds Empire, and they could also foresee the destruction of the Heavenly Clouds Empire. Everyone was watching the show from the sidelines. No one thought that the Heavenly Clouds Empire could defeat the World Dragon Empire. The foundation of an empire with 5 kings wasn't something any faction could compare to. And this was just the power on the surface. Only the heavens knew what the situation was like inside. The outside knew it was like this, but the inside was not clear. A small empire that just rose up disobeyed our orders. The World Dragon Great Emperor angrily slammed the table, and the hard table was instantly smashed into pieces. The ministers trembled in fear. They didn't want to bear the anger of the Great Emperor. World Dragon Great Emperor, the new Great Emperor is quite bold. Not only did he kill our people, but he also dared to kill our Lord Mingchen's clone. He is so arrogant because our heavenly netherworld divine nation can't come up. If he dared to come down, we would have already cut him into pieces. An old man with a gloomy aura said coldly. His cultivation wasn't high. He was only at the void spirit stage, but he was able to sit on the side as if he was on equal footing with the World Dragon Great Emperor. There was no doubt that this old man was an expert sent by the heavenly netherworld divine nation. Since they couldn't deal with Yi Tianyan, they could only seek help from the strongest World Dragon Empire. However, their information was relatively outdated. They still didn't know that Yi Tianyan had gone down before. This was the advantage of disguising himself. No matter how many cultivators he killed, they still didn't know. They still thought that Etianyan had been staying in the mortal world for a long time, so their information was far behind. I don't know what force is behind him. I don't believe that he killed all the great emperors of the 4 empires. He must have a helper. The World Dragon Great Emperor's eyes were filled with disbelief. That's right. No matter what kind of helper he has, I don't think he can do anything in the hands of the World Dragon Great Emperor, the old man said with a smile. As long as the World Dragon Great Emperor can eradicate the Heavenly Clouds Empire, our Heavenly Netherworld Divine Nation will make 2 big promises. First, we will give you a divine artifact. Second, we will arrange for our disciples to go down to the ghost world. Third, we will form an alliance with you. I believe you won't lose out on this. The World Dragon Great Emperor's eyes flashed. This was the reason why he agreed. There were a lot of benefits, a divine artifact, and an alliance with the Heavenly Netherworld Divine Nation. This meant that he could form an alliance with a divine nation, which was of course a good thing. Especially against a 3rd-grade faction. How could the World Dragon Empire not agree? It was normal for them to destroy some small factions for their own benefit. I have a question. Why do you want the Netherworld continent and the Heavenly Boundary continent so much? The World Dragon Great Emperor asked. This is not something that the World Dragon Great Emperor can understand. You just need to help me capture those 2 territories. The old man said with a smile. A cold light flashed in the World Dragon Great Emperor's eyes, but he didn't show it. He just smiled and said, "No problem. It's just a small empire, and I can flatten it in no time. There are so many empires in the world, and the Heavenly Clouds Empire is no exception. If they don't obey, they will die." No, World Dragon Great Emperor, I don't need them to obey. I will destroy them directly, the old man said coldly. Chapter 584. While the Heavenly Clouds Empire was about to be annihilated, Etianyan was almost done with his preparations, and the guards immediately rushed in from the outside. Reporting to the Great Emperor, the World Dragon Empire's Divine General is leading an army to this place. They will arrive in less than half a day. The guard who was kneeling on the ground said with a pale face. Although he already knew that this would happen, he still felt terrified when it actually happened. This was the World Dragon Empire, the strongest empire in the mortal world. Most people didn't know how strong the ghost world was. After all, they had never been there before. However, most people knew which empire was the strongest in the mortal world, and the meaning was completely different. Directly to the imperial capital? It seems like they are doing a good job. They didn't take turns to invade our cities. Etienne's eyes turned cold. If they invaded one city at a time, it would be a full-scale invasion. Now that they directly came to the imperial capital, it wasn't because of their good character, but because it was no different from falling into the enemy's hands. If the great emperor of an empire was dead, or even the upper echelons of an empire were dead, then the empire was basically an empty shell. Then, the other cities would definitely surrender, and they wouldn't choose to resist. Previously, the 4 great empires pushed all the way to the Heavenly Dragon Empire because they were arrogant. They thought that they were strong enough to force the Heavenly Dragon Empire into a corner and block all directions, so that the Heavenly Dragon Empire would have no way to escape. Now the World Dragon Empire was a bit more straightforward, and they directly attacked the Heavenly Clouds Empire. "They're here." Etianyan stood up and quickly flew out of the hall. He had just reported to the Heavenly Dragon Empire. And they were already here? The guards looked at each other and saw the horror in each other's eyes. How did they come so fast? Obviously, the intelligence was wrong, and the enemy's speed was far slower than they thought. In the next moment, Etianyan appeared outside the city wall. At this time, the guards on the city wall had already sounded the alarm. However, Etianyan raised his hand gently and signaled them to stop, and the alarm quickly stopped. Looking up, there were 5 figures flying over from afar. They tore through the thick clouds in the sky and sprinted over. In less than a moment, it arrived in front of them and flew outside the city wall. 5 people were looking at them coldly. Each of them had amazing cultivation. Surprisingly, they were led by 2 Spirit King stage experts. The weakest one was at the 6th layer of Spirit King stage, while the strongest one was at the 7th layer of Spirit King stage. One of them was at the 6th layer, while the other was at the 7th layer. Sending 2 Spirit King stage experts at the same time could be said to be a big move. Moreover, both of them were at the late Spirit King stage. There were also 3 Void Spirit stage powerhouses, and their cultivation bases were also at the late Void Spirit stage. People from the heavenly netherworld divine kingdom? Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold. The elder beside him had the aura of the heavenly netherworld holy kingdom, which was even more obvious under the appraisal eye. He wanted to say that the World Dragon Empire would not be related to the heavenly netherworld divine nation. Now, it seemed like it was indeed related to the heavenly netherworld divine nation. They look like World Dragon Empire's Divine General Mystic Dragon and Divine General Mystic Tiger. Both of them are here? That's right. They are the most powerful divine generals of the World Dragon Empire. I didn't expect them to come here personally. I heard that when the 2 of them move out together, not even a blade of grass grows wherever they go. They are unstoppable. It's over. The World Dragon Empire has already used such a powerful move. Can our great emperor resist it? Both of them were immortal generals of the World Dragon Empire. They often went to war and made great military exploits. Wherever they went, people would choose to surrender under the pressure of these 2 immortal generals. It was as if they could subdue the enemy without a fight. They were the World Dragon Empire's emperor subduing divine generals. Heavenly Cloud's Empire's great emperor, come out now! The divine general roared, and his deafening roar spread out in all directions. The terrifying sound waves spread out layer by layer, plowing the ground, and finally, the sound waves hit the city wall. Just when the sound waves were about to hit the city wall's defensive array, Yi Tianyun flew up and waved his hand to extinguish the sound waves. Then the sound waves turned into a gust of wind and blew away all the clouds in the sky. The expressions of the guards changed immediately. Just the roar alone was enough to destroy the world. Was this the power of the World Dragon Empire? The spirit race old ancestor and Yi Qingxian quickly rushed over, and when they saw the 5 powerhouses, their faces immediately became solemn. Although they all trusted Yi Tianyun, they had to admit that these 5 powerhouses put a lot of pressure on them. They were worried about Yi Tianyun's condition. If they couldn't deal with these 5 powerhouses, then everything would be over. Slap. Yi Tianyun waved his hand, and a terrifying force rushed towards the Divine General. The Divine General was caught off guard by Yi Tianyun's sudden attack, and the Divine General was instantly sent flying away by Yi Tianyun's slap. Slap. The crisp sound was no weaker than his previous roar. After being slapped away for more than 10 miles, the Divine General barely managed to stop. A large part of Divine General Mystic Dragon's face was swollen, and his head was almost sent flying. A dignified Divine General had been slapped black and blue, and his opponent couldn't even react in time. How dare you make such a racket in front of the imperial capital? You should be slapped. Yi Tianyun looked at them coldly, without the slightest bit of fear. The heavy slap was like a slap to everyone's heart. It was so shocking. This was Divine General Mystic Dragon. How could he be slapped so easily? Was it because Yi Tianyun was too powerful? Or did Divine General Mystic Dragon not react in time? Clearly he had reacted, but he couldn't block this move. Kill. Divine General Mystic Dragon roared. And a huge dragon shadow appeared behind him, instantly covering his body with a thick layer of dragon scales. Even his palms turned into dragon claws, and a domineering dragon might was released. It was as if a real dragon had appeared in front of him. Most of them absorbed the dragon clan's blood essence, and Divine General Mystic Dragon was no exception. Otherwise, he wouldn't be called Divine General Mystic Dragon. He was slapped as soon as he arrived. He was both shocked and enraged, and he didn't expect to be unable to react in time. In his rage, he unleashed all his strength and charged at Yi Tianyun. Divine General Mystic Tiger also felt his heart skip a beat. With a roar, white fur grew out of his body, and he instantly transformed into a huge white tiger. He had absorbed a slightly different kind of blood. It was the blood of a white tiger, and it possessed a violent bestial nature. In terms of strength, it was not inferior to a dragon's. This was only the beginning, but the two divine generals were already forced to use all their strength. They felt a terrifying sense of danger welling up in their hearts. After fighting on the battlefield for so long, they would more or less sense danger. The feeling that Yi Tianyan gave them was exactly that. Chapter 585. The two divine generals unleashed their strongest power. Whether it was the thick dragon scales or the huge white tiger, they shocked the onlookers. The guards guarding the imperial capital were sweating profusely. Their hearts felt like they were being strangled, making it hard for them to breathe. They felt even more pressure. Although they had just seen Yi Tianyan slap them, their hearts were still hanging by a thread. Most people couldn't tell what was going on. Apart from these powerhouses, the rest thought that it was just a sneak attack, and that this was the real confrontation. Little did they know that this slap had smashed their arrogant hearts, causing them to tremble uncontrollably. Even if Divine General Mystic Dragon wasn't prepared, he should have been able to react and block such a sudden attack. Who would have thought that he would still be slapped away? It was obvious that Yi Tianyan's power was not as weak as the rumors said. And he didn't rely on anyone's power. What are you waiting for? Kill him. The old man's eyes flickered. He obviously knew that the real enemy was Yi Tianyan. He stared at him as if he wanted to swallow him whole. Yi Tianyan had destroyed Ming Chen's soul and caused irreparable damage to him. As Ming Chen's subordinate, this old man must hate him to the core. After the two divine generals unleashed their power, they joined forces to surround Yi Tianyan. Their auras quickly fused to form a huge spiritual power shield that completely sealed off the area where Yi Tianyan was. The power of the dragon and the power of the tiger were two unrelated forces, but now they had fused together to reach a perfect degree of compatibility. From this, it could be seen that their cooperation had reached an extremely perfect level. Someone who could reach this level could not be a good-for-nothing, so the power that erupted from him was extremely shocking. There were faint dragon and tiger patterns on the light shield that surrounded him, constantly pressuring the area where Yi Tianyan was. Violent fluctuations spread in all directions. Under this pressure, the ground was constantly pressed down, forming fine cracks that spread in all directions. It was easy to imagine how terrifying this pressure was. Perhaps anyone below the core transformation stage would be easily crushed into a meat patty. Crush him to death for me. Divine General Mystic Dragon snorted coldly and continued increasing the strength in his hand. Divine General Mystic Tiger nodded in understanding. Following that, the two of them gradually unleashed their strongest attacks, continuously pressing down on Yi Tianyan. The space that Yi Tianyan could dodge to was getting smaller and smaller. If this were to continue, he would definitely be flattened. However, Yi Tianyan's expression was indifferent. He turned a blind eye to the space that was constantly squeezing him, as if he didn't feel any danger at all. This is your killer move. Yi Tianyan looked up at them and said. Their expressions darkened. This move was called Heaven and Earth Suppression. As the name suggested, it could suppress the entire world. When they fused their strongest powers together and reached a point of balance, the power was quite astonishing. They often used it to trap a large number of enemies. No matter how the enemy attacked, they would not be able to break this light barrier. In the end, they would be forcibly squeezed to death, unable to resist at all. They could only watch as the space pressed down on them bit by bit, unable to escape. The feeling of being pressed down step by step made them feel despair. Yi Tianyan did not feel anything at all, facing their ultimate killer move. He still had an indifferent expression. You're still so arrogant in the face of death. No matter how strong you are, you won't be able to break our killer move. Divine General Mystic Dragon said in a deep voice. The old man on the side laughed sinisterly. He could see that the killer move's power was very astonishing. While there was still some time, he sneered and said, You're dead for resisting Heavenly Netherworld Divine Nation. It's a pity that a good genius died just like that. But you killed Lord Ming's soul. Even if you're a super genius, you still have to die. Yi Tianyan looked at him and said indifferently, Heavenly Netherworld Divine Nation only sent you? I thought they would send a strong person. Who knew they would send a dog? Most importantly, this dog even went to the World Dragon Empire. Does it think that the World Dragon Empire can kill me? Humph, isn't it? Do you have any helpers? Hurry up and call them out. The old man sneered and turned his head to look around, wanting to see where Etienne's helpers were. Divine General Mystic Dragon. And the others also spread their spiritual senses to the maximum, wanting to see if there were any helpers coming. They all thought that Etienne had helpers, otherwise he would not be so calm. Helpers? Etienne shook his head and said, I don't have any helpers, I'm here alone. How can you destroy the 4 empires without helpers? Divine General Mystic Dragon sneered. I don't believe that helpers won't come and save you when you're about to die. As they spoke, they kept releasing their power. The space around Etienne became smaller and smaller, and soon, they would stick to him. Once it got close to him, it would squeeze him into a bloody mist. They still refused to believe that Etienne did not have helpers. It was impossible for him to deal with the 4 empires with his current strength. That's all you have, no other helpers? Etienne looked around. There were indeed only 5 people. They had been here for a long time, but there were still only 5 people. It's enough to deal with you. Even if you have helpers behind you, it's still more than enough. Divine General Mystic Tiger increased the pressure as he spoke, but more importantly, he kept checking the surroundings to avoid a sneak attack. They thought that Etienne had been distracting them all this time, so that someone would sneak up on him while they were distracted. Obviously, they were wrong. Etienne raised his hand, and with a wave of his hand, the heaven and earth suppressor that was trapping him exploded. It was as easy as poking a piece of paper. Humph. Divine General's Mystic Dragon and Divine General Mystic Dragon grunted, and were sent flying as if they had been electrocuted. Blood trickled down the corner of their mouths, and their faces were frighteningly pale. But that was not the point. The point was that Etienne had easily broken their killer move. Their hearts were in turmoil, and they were extremely shocked. The killer move they had used all their strength to execute had been broken with a casual flick. Just how much power was needed to achieve this? It's time for me to take action. Since there are only these few of you, I'll clean you all up. I thought there would be other helpers. What a waste of my time. A high-grade sacred sword appeared in Etienne's hand. He would not casually take out the divine sword he had previously obtained. Of course, there was no need for a divine sword to deal with them. A sacred weapon was enough to instantly kill them. With that, Etienne's figure flickered and he vanished before their eyes. The next moment he appeared next to Divine General Mystic Dragon, and slashed down with his sword. Alarmed, Divine General Mystic Dragon roared, and raised his defenses to the maximum. But no matter how strong or hard a dragon's scale was, it could not withstand his slash. The simple and unadorned slash was met with no obstruction at all. Everyone only saw a flash of sword light and nothing else. Then a line of blood appeared on Divine General Mystic Dragon's head, and a pillar of blood spurted out. Then he was cut in half and fell from the sky. It was just a slash, but Divine General Mystic Dragon, who had thick dragon scales, was cut in half. It was unbelievably terrifying. No one would believe that a Divine General of the World Dragon Empire had been cut in half just like that. Chapter 586. Ding. Successfully killed mysterious dragon Divine General. Reward, 210 million EXP, 13,000 crazy point, 1,800 SPS. Reward, killing dragon, dragon spirit secret art. Reward, broken tooth high-grade sacred tool. Dragon spirit ring, low-grade sacred tool accessory. Dragon god bloodline 4th grade. Killing Spirit King stage cultivators gave him a lot of EXP compared to killing core transformation stage cultivators. Etienne got a lot more EXP. However, the dragon spirit ring dropped, which surprised him a lot. Finally, it started to drop accessories. He checked it a little, and the detailed data immediately appeared in front of him. Dragon spirit ring, low-grade sacred tool. Increases strength by 10 times and defense by 5 times. Consumes 5,000 crazy point to cast Dragon Roar. Damage is 50% of current combat power. Cooldown time is half an hour. Good stuff. Etienne is quite satisfied. No wonder he didn't drop any jewelry. This thing is really good. But he can only wear one. Although he had 10 fingers, even if he wore it, only one of them would work. If he could wear it on all 10 fingers, it would be heaven-defying. Just a ring that could increase strength by 10 times could increase strength by 100 times. Just the strength alone could shatter the void and destroy everything. When he checked the ring, everyone stared at him with their mouths agape, or at the corpses scattered on the ground, unable to close their mouths for a long time. This is really scary. A 7th layer Spirit King stage Mysterious Dragon Divine General was cut in half so easily? He was cut in half like a piece of paper. Tianyan immediately shifted his gaze to Mysterious Tiger Divine General and the others' faces. Obviously, they were shocked by Tianyan's power. They asked themselves if it was possible for them to cut someone in half with a single slash. Even if they had a high-grade sacred tool, Mysterious Dragon Divine General's dragon scales were comparable to a mid-grade sacred tool, so it was quite difficult to cut him in half. But who knew that under Tianyan's overbearing power, Mysterious Dragon Divine General was still cut in half, shocking everyone. I don't have any helpers. I said that I can overthrow all empires by myself, but you don't believe me. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean others can't do it. Tianyan said indifferently. Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor, Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor. Suddenly, the guards behind him roared out, their voices piercing through the clouds. How could they not be excited to see their own great emperor so powerful? This was a completely invincible stance that could crush all power. Divine General Mystic Dragon, who was known to be undefeatable, had been killed with a single strike. One could imagine how powerful he was. The elder and the others narrowed their eyes and took a deep breath. Based on this, they weren't facing a great emperor with a helper, but a great emperor who was terrifyingly powerful himself. Qianlong. The Mystic Tiger Divine General screamed at the top of his lungs. His heart was about to explode at this moment. His eyes were bloodshot, and his heart was about to explode. How could he not be angry that his good friend, whom he had fought alongside for so many years, had died in front of him? I want you dead. The Mystic Tiger Divine General roared angrily as the divine tiger blood in his body began to burn. The white tiger phantom behind him roared crazily, as though it was about to materialize. Its strength grew stronger and stronger. His body quickly swelled up, and his hair grew thicker and thicker. His eyes turned a frightening green. Even in broad daylight, it could emit a green light. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts when they saw it. His physique quickly grew to twice its original size. Now it was more than 100 feet tall and had become a small mountain. Especially when he was floating in the air, he looked like a small mountain flying in the air. Tianyan didn't waste time with him and slashed his sword at the Mystic Tiger Divine General. A sword light streaked across the Mystic Tiger Divine General's body at an incredible speed. The Mystic Tiger Divine General paused for a moment, and when he found that there was nothing wrong with his body, he laughed and said, "This garbage attack is useless against me." After going berserk, his strength and defense had greatly increased, but the side effect was equally shocking. "You know nothing about my strength," Tianyan said indifferently. No matter how powerful a Spirit King stage expert was, he was nothing but trash in front of him. "Is that so? Then let me see." The Mystic Tiger Divine General didn't even finish his words when his body split in half from the middle, just like the Mystic Dragon Divine General before. A large amount of blood poured down from the sky like a waterfall, dyeing the ground red. Following that, the huge body collapsed from the sky with a look of disbelief in its eyes, causing a cloud of dust to rise from the ground and swirl in all directions. Another Divine General died, and his fate was the same as the Mystic Dragon Divine General. This time, the Mystic Tiger Divine General was well prepared, and he even used his strongest power, but the result was the same as before. He was still cut in half. Ding. Successfully killed the Mystic Tiger Divine General. Reward, 199 million EXP, 12,000 Crazy Point, 1,400 SPS. Reward, White Tiger Break, White Tiger Possession. Reward, White Tiger Skin, White Tiger Bloodline 3rd Grade, White Tiger Claw. The Mystic Tiger Divine General didn't drop any accessories, which made Tianyan a little disappointed. But overall, it was okay. Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor, Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor. The guards behind Yi Tianyan cheered again. They hadn't seen Yi Tianyan fight before, so they didn't know how strong he was. Now they knew that the great emperor was the strongest existence, and they didn't fear the World Dragon Empire at all. It's a pity, if the World Dragon Empire's 5 kings came, I could kill them all. Yi Tianyan sneered. He waited here for a long time, but no one came to help him. Even after killing 2 spirit kings, no one came to help him. This proved that there were only 2 spirit king stage experts, which was too little. The old man's face turned pale, and he immediately turned around and fled. He didn't dare to stay here any longer. But the moment he turned around, 2 of them looked at Yi Tianyan, and their bodies suddenly froze. Let's go. One of the Void Spirit Stage cultivators shouted. But as soon as he shouted, 2 swords pierced through his body, and he looked up in disbelief. The one who pierced through his body was not someone else, but his companion. Yu. After shouting twice, he completely stopped breathing. When he died, he was filled with resentment. He did not expect to die in the hands of his own people. He didn't know that his companion didn't want to do this, but Yi Tianyan manipulated them to do this. Chapter 587. The 2 divine generals had easily killed them as if they were chopping melons and vegetables. This scene made the ministers and guards feel even more respect, and their reverence was even more endless. Looking at Yi Tianyan's eyes, they are more respectful and loyal than before. Only those who were strong could be respected. Without strength, it was impossible for them to be completely convinced. Yi Tianyan's power had answered their belief. They believed that Yi Tianyan would definitely win, protect them, and guard the entire Heavenly Clouds Empire. Now that Yi Tianyan succeeded, it shocked the entire Heavenly Clouds Empire. They believed that this news would soon spread throughout the mortal world, and everyone would be shocked by it. The fact that the World Dragon Empire's army was killed by Yi Tianyan at the gate of the mortal world was undoubtedly tantamount to increasing their prestige. Letting them officially become the Empire's emperor was equivalent to telling everyone that Yi Tianyan could kill even Spirit King stage experts, who wouldn't dare to recognize the Heavenly Clouds Empire. Both Divine General Xianlong and Divine General Xian, who were generals who had won many battles, yet they were killed by Yi Tianyan. This was enough to shock a large number of empires. It seems that this news will soon spread throughout the mortal world. I wonder how the World Dragon Empire will feel when that happens. Yi Tianyan sneered. He had already sentenced the World Dragon Empire to death. Even if they didn't come looking for him, Yi Tianyan would go looking for them. If Yi Tianyan wasn't strong enough, he would definitely be killed by the 2 divine generals. Vengeance would always be his motto. He would never let go of the World Dragon Empire. After a little reorganization, he would immediately go to the World Dragon Empire alone. Then he followed Yi Tianyan back to the Heavenly Netherworld Divine Nation with the 2 Void Spirit experts and asked them about their situation, especially the old man from the Heavenly Netherworld Divine Nation. After returning to his room, Yi Tianyan sat on the chair and looked at them leisurely. He even poured himself a cup of fragrant tea and slowly sipped it. On the contrary, the 2 of them obediently stood where they were, looking at him with frightened eyes, unable to utter a single word. I almost forgot. I'll let you say a few words first. Yi Tianyan waved his hand and gestured for the lackey of Nether Heaven Divine Kingdom to speak first. You, what kind of trick is this? I advise you to let me go. Otherwise, if the Holy Master comes, you'll definitely die. The old man had just regained the ability to speak, and he immediately began to threaten him. Pa! Yi Tianyan slapped him with the back of his hand, causing his mouth to be filled with blood. Who knew how many of his teeth had been knocked out? It wasn't that he didn't respect his elders, but that this fellow didn't deserve it at all. Let's not talk about whether or not your Holy Master can kill me for now. The key is whether or not your Holy Master can come up here. Yi Tianyan looked at him calmly. You, how did you know? The old man was taken aback. He still thought that Yi Tianyan didn't go down there, so he didn't know about the situation down there. Of course I know, I just came up from the bottom not long ago. And I killed 5 of your Spirit King stage experts, including Ming Chen. Yi Tianyan said as he slowly took a sip of his tea. You killed them? This is impossible. It was obviously someone else who killed them. The old man was shocked, but in his heart, he already believed Etienne's words. 2 divine generals were easily killed by Etienne, so killing 5 Spirit King stage experts in a row shouldn't be a big problem. But he doesn't admit it, he still thinks that Etienne is lying. Whether you believe me or not, it has nothing to do with me, Etienne said indifferently. Now, I want to ask you, what is the Nether Heaven Divine Kingdom's plan? Etienne lightly pointed at the old man, and the old man immediately blurted out. The Nether Heaven Divine Kingdom's plan is very simple. Since they can't come up here, and ordinary Spirit King stage experts can't do any harm to you, they suspect that you have a powerful backer. Therefore, they want to use the power of this continent to attack you. They want to regain the ownership of this continent and completely control the heavenly boundary continent. The old man told Etienne everything in detail. It was better than soul-searching. Soul-searching can only get a little information at most, and it's very likely that the other party will become a fool if he doesn't find anything. Etienne told Etienne everything that was asked. After he finished, the fear in the old man's eyes increased even more. He couldn't help but want to commit suicide, but he didn't even have the ability to do so. The control of the Netherworld continent and the heavenly boundary continent. For a long time, they have been eyeing this continent covetously. What is it? Etienne looked up at the old man and stopped drinking the tea in his hand. He could vaguely guess a few things, and it was not simple. I don't know about this. Legend has it that there is a divine king's supreme treasure between these 2 continents, but I don't know the details. The Holy Lord's order is to seize these 2 continents, including the earthly boundary continent. The old man said truthfully. That's right, with your identity, what can you know? Etienne touched his chin. Although he didn't know the details, he roughly said that there may be a divine king's supreme treasure. The supreme treasure left by the divine king is likely to be a high-grade divine tool. How can such a thing not be tempted by the Holy Lord? If they want to break through to the divine king stage, they will need this kind of treasure even more. Moreover, once they have a divine king's supreme treasure, who would dare to stop them? You, what kind of demonic technique did you use to make me say this? The old man shouted loudly. He wanted to commit suicide, but he couldn't do it. You don't have to worry about that. You will soon be a dead man anyway. Etienne waved his hand and made the old man shut up. At the same time, he asked the other void spirit stage cultivator. He was an expert of the World Dragon Empire. Although he wasn't one of the main forces, he was the one who cleaned up the mess. What he said was basically that after the 2 divine generals captured the 2 continents, he would temporarily manage the Heavenly Clouds Empire. But who knew that the ending was not like that, but the Heavenly Clouds Empire was destroyed. So that's how it is. Etienne slowly stood up and looked at them indifferently. That's enough, I have learned everything I need to know. Go out and explode yourselves, I don't want to dirty my hands by killing you here. As soon as he said that, they immediately turned around and flew outside. Soon, they exploded each other in the sky, making a deafening sound that echoed throughout the area. It's almost time to go. World Dragon Empire, huh? Let me see how strong you are. Chapter 588. The news of the war in the Heavenly Clouds' imperial capital spread like wildfire. In fact, there were many spies who were watching the war from the sidelines. Many empires wanted to see what would happen to the Heavenly Clouds Empire, so they sent their spies to investigate. However, the result was shocking. The Heavenly Clouds Empire was fine, but 2 of its divine generals were killed. One empire with 5 kings instantly became one empire with 3 kings. This was a heavy loss. Many empires who thought that the Heavenly Clouds Empire was doomed were shocked and angry at the same time. They didn't expect Etienne to be so powerful. They didn't expect him to be able to kill such a powerful Spirit King stage expert. If the World Dragon Empire compromised, Etienne would be able to take over the World Dragon Empire. They didn't give Etienne any face at all. If the World Dragon Empire was overthrown, they didn't know what would happen to Etienne. If Etienne got angry, they would be doomed. They didn't dare to go to the World Dragon Empire to express their goodwill. If the Heavenly Clouds Empire couldn't stop the anger of the World Dragon Empire, they would also be doomed. However, remaining neutral was also a worse choice. After all, no matter which side won, they would still end up in the worst situation. Now it's about choosing which empire to support. This is the battle for the First Empire. If Tianyan wins, the First Empire will be replaced. At that time, some of the smaller empires would be miserable. If Tianyan won, they wouldn't feel any pressure at all. In fact, they would even get a lot of benefits. But if they lost, the World Dragon Empire would definitely wipe them out. Although Tianyan was shocked this time, there were still a few empires who chose to side with Tianyan. They still chose to stand with the World Dragon Empire. The World Dragon Empire's foundation was too strong. It had been established for thousands of years. How could its foundation be weak? Although 2 of its divine generals were killed, they believed that the World Dragon Empire was still invincible. The so-called One Empire with 5 kings was enough to deceive ordinary forces, but the other empires didn't believe it. The World Dragon Empire occupied the continent with the best resources, the richest spiritual energy, and enjoyed the best inheritance. Rumor had it that it had connections with some god kingdoms, whether it was the Netherworld or the Heaven Realm. Under such circumstances, who would choose to stand on Tianyun's side? However, there were still a few empires who chose to bet on the Heavenly Clouds Empire, but they were all small empires. I heard that the mysterious Soul Empire is supporting the Heavenly Clouds Empire. They are too young to bet on the Heavenly Clouds Empire. Yes, the Heavenly Clouds' great emperor is very powerful, but he is just one person. If he dies, the Heavenly Clouds Empire will surely lose. Yes, the 2 divine generals are dead, but there are still other experts holding the fort. After all, the Heavenly Clouds Empire's great emperor was dead. It's just an empty shell. The spirit race's forces aren't bad, but they've already declined. There's no point in doing so. After hearing the news, the empires that supported the World Dragon Empire ridiculed the forces that supported the Heavenly Clouds Empire, thinking that they had made the stupidest decision in history. Those who chose to stand on the Heavenly Clouds Empire's side immediately began to support the Heavenly Clouds Empire. They even declared that if the Heavenly Clouds Empire invaded the Heavenly Clouds continent, they would be attacked by the Heavenly Clouds Empire. It was really bold of them to express their goodwill at this critical moment. However, their forces weren't that strong, and they still chose to bet on the Heavenly Clouds Empire. They didn't know where they got their courage from. When Tianyan learned about it, he just smiled and didn't say anything. Since someone was willing to stand on his side, he would naturally give them benefits after the war. He would never mistreat his friends who stood on his side. As for those who stood on his side, the consequences were obvious. While the outside world was in an uproar, the World Dragon Empire was also in an uproar. How could the World Dragon Great Emperor not feel sad about the death of his 2 divine generals? Is this kid really that powerful? The World Dragon Great Emperor's face turned pale. He knew that Tianyan was very powerful, and that's why he sent 2 great divine generals to besiege Tianyan. Even if Tianyan was at the 8th layer Spirit King stage, he would be able to kill Tianyan. Wasn't that giving face? Who knew that the 2 divine generals would be easily killed by Tianyan? According to the news that came back, the entire World Dragon Empire was shocked. Even the former emperor of the World Dragon Empire was forced out of his seclusion room. In addition to the death of 2 divine generals, it also meant that they provoked a monster. Chinner, you're too reckless. You've caused the death of our 2 divine generals. You're being irresponsible to the World Dragon Empire. The old man at the side was extremely old, as if he had 1 foot in the coffin. However, his eyes were surging with vigor, which was completely disproportionate to his body. He was the former emperor of the World Dragon Empire, and his name was Chun Xian. As for the current World Dragon Great Emperor, his name was Chun Qin. As long as one became a Great Emperor, he would be given another title, which was the World Dragon Great Emperor. I know. But according to the information I gathered, the other party's cultivation is at most at the 2nd or 3rd layer Spirit King stage. Who knew? Chun Qin said with a pained expression. Who knew that the information he gathered would be so inaccurate? The mistake is a foregone conclusion. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's see how we can make up for it. Chen Xian said coldly. Even if he is a dragon, he still has to stay where he is. He doesn't have the final say in the mortal world, but the World Dragon Empire. No matter who is behind him, we will let the Heavenly Clouds Empire and the whole mortal world know that the World Dragon Empire is still the strongest. Even the Heaven Primordial Empire has to step aside. That's right. Chen Chen's eyes flashed. Their foundation wasn't that simple. Then Imperial Father, what should we do now? It's very simple. We will personally lead the 2 guardian divine dragons to destroy the Heavenly Clouds Empire. Chen Xian said with a sneer. We will let the world know that the World Dragon Empire is not to be messed with. Especially those empires that chose to support a kid who hasn't even grown his hair yet. Only by using bloody means could the world know how strong they were. If they stayed at home all the time, who would know how strong they were? Great, Chen Chen said excitedly. What about the Supreme Old Ancestor? There is no need to alarm the Old Ancestor. Unless it's a matter of life and death, he won't come personally. Chen Xian shook his head and said with a sneer. If we can't even deal with him, then our World Dragon Empire is really useless. Yes, we father and son will definitely kill him with our swords. Chen Chen nodded and immediately came up with a countermeasure. Before they could discuss the countermeasures, Yi Tianyun flew to the World Dragon Empire alone. He didn't even need to wait for them to attack. Chapter 589. Someone is flying over there. Who is it? Are you hallucinating? I don't see anyone. Bullshit. Look carefully. Someone is flying over there. The guards on the World Dragon Imperial Capital's city wall pointed into the distance. When the guards took a closer look, they realized that someone was flying towards them at high speed. That person was getting closer and closer. Warning! Warning! You must land within 50 miles of the World Dragon Imperial City. You are not allowed to fly. If you dare to fly without permission, you will be killed. The World Dragon Empire was overbearing. To them, as long as one was not a minister, flying in the World Dragon Imperial City was a crime punishable by death. To be more precise, other than the cultivators of the World Dragon Empire, no one was allowed to fly in the World Dragon Imperial City. Otherwise, they would be killed. There were 3 Void Spirit stage experts on the city wall. If the guards were so strong, one could imagine how strong the people inside the city were. The World Dragon Empire was like a divine kingdom in the mortal world. The difference between them and the other empires was too huge. It was because they were so strong that they were able to restrict all the cultivators who were not from the World Dragon Empire to follow their own rules. However, the warning did not work on the cultivators who were flying towards them. The rest of the cultivators had already landed on the ground and started to walk. However, there was one person who was flying towards them. His speed did not slow down at all. He flew into the city wall at an extremely fast speed. He is flying so fast. I think he is at the Void Spirit stage. Is this his first time coming to the World Dragon Imperial City? Hehe. No matter what, this kid is going to die. He thinks he is invincible. How dare he fly in the city wall? Unless he has a flying permit. Are you stupid? If he has a flying permit, do you think the guards will warn him? They looked at the cultivators who were getting closer and closer to the city wall, with a gloating expression on their faces. They were ready to witness a good show where the cultivators would be killed on the spot. The World Dragon Empire kept its word. Anyone who flew in without a permit would be killed without mercy. Prepare to attack. The guard's face turned cold, and he quickly signaled his companions to take out their weapons. He also took out a long spear and flew out of the city wall. The 3 Void Spirit stage experts were preparing to intercept an intruder. Who would have thought that as soon as he flew out, he would see a ray of light shooting towards him. It streaked across the sky at lightning speed, heading straight for the thick city gate. Dodge. The guards' expressions changed. At such a close distance, they discovered that the power rushing toward them was extremely terrifying, making them feel an incomparable pressure. This feeling was even more terrifying than facing a divine general. Under such circumstances, they tried to run, but it was too late. The ball of light smashed into the city gate like a meteor. As soon as it came into contact with the city gate, a ray of light shot up into the sky and covered half of the World Dragon Empire. Everyone's eyes were immediately blinded by the light, and they could only shut their eyes quickly. This light was simply too dazzling, and it was impossible to look at it directly. As soon as they closed their eyes, a deafening sound exploded in their ears. The cultivators who were near the city gate were blown away by the explosion, and a terrifying tornado was formed. The guards who were unable to escape in time were instantly engulfed by the tornado. After the complete eruption, the earth shook and the mountains shook. Even the entire World Dragon Imperial capital was shaking violently. The array was activated, and layers of defensive arrays were set up. However, it did not last long before the defensive array was crushed, and an even more violent explosion could be heard from hundreds of miles away. Boom! After the explosion was slightly suppressed, it was finally released. Previously, it hit the defensive array, but this time, it hit the city wall. Following that, countless boulders were sent flying like meteorites, crashing down in all directions. Everyone was so frightened that their faces turned pale. They screamed and fled in all directions. When these boulders landed on the ground, a huge wave was created, and a huge pit was formed on the ground. Many experts were sent flying away by the shock wave, and they were either killed or injured. After a while, the light finally disappeared. The people in the distance looked in the direction of the explosion, and found that the unbreakable city gate was blown away. The towering city gate was now a pile of ruins, and it looked terrible. The most important thing was that the defensive array was destroyed. This was a Grandmaster-level defensive array, and it was blown away just like that. The defensive array is broken, and the city wall is destroyed. The imperial capital is invaded. Who dares to do this? This is the World Dragon Empire's capital. This is crazy. The unbreakable city wall was blown away just like that. What the hell is going on? The cultivators inside were shocked, and the cultivators outside who were mocking them before were even more shocked. They saw a figure flying in the air without any injuries, but the city gate was destroyed. The 3 guards were nowhere to be seen. They had probably been turned into ashes by the shockwaves, leaving not even a speck of dust behind. God, who did the World Dragon Empire provoke? This power is too terrifying. Could it be the legendary Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor? Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor? The cultivators outside screamed and jumped up like a cat whose tail was stepped on. They were so scared that they hurriedly retreated. The Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor's arrival meant that he was going to attack the World Dragon Empire. This place would soon become a battlefield, and they didn't dare to stay here any longer. Yes, it might be the Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor. He is the only one who dares to go against the World Dragon Empire. Let's retreat first. They quickly retreated one by one. Some of them didn't want to retreat immediately, and wanted to see the power of the World Dragon Empire. They wanted to see if Tianyan would win, or if he would be killed here. World Dragon Great Emperor, come out now. The young man standing on the ruins of the city wall was Tianyan. He didn't disguise himself, and he still kept his face. He was less than 20 years old, but he had reached such a terrifying cultivation level. No one would believe it if they heard it. Many people would only think of him as an old monster, otherwise, how could he be so powerful? Hearing this roar, all the cultivators who didn't know the situation immediately changed their expressions. At this time, they knew who was coming to kill them. It was the Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor. The World Dragon Empire didn't retaliate, but the Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor came to kill them in person. They didn't know if Tianyan had absolute confidence in himself, or was he just blindly arrogant after killing 2 divine generals. Most people thought that it was blind arrogance. How could one person really destroy the World Dragon Empire? Even if the city wall was destroyed, they didn't believe that Tianyan could kill everyone. The prestige of the World Dragon Empire had always been deeply rooted, and no one believed that anyone could destroy it. Chapter 590. A large part of the World Dragon Imperial capital's city wall had collapsed, and the symbolic city gate was now in a terrible state. It couldn't even be seen that it used to be a city gate, as it had turned into a pile of ruins. The thick gate was blown away, and no one knew where it went. Looking around, many houses in front of him were blown away, and countless stones fell down, smashing everything into a mess. The one who caused all of this was the newly promoted Heavenly Cloud's great emperor, and he came to the World Dragon Imperial City in person. World Dragon Great Emperor, come out now! Tianyan shouted again, but he didn't go in, he just waited for them to come out. How dare you! A roaring dragon power came from a distance, and in the blink of an eye, it was already in front of Tianyan, and it opened its mouth to swallow him. Get lost! Tianyan waved his hand and smashed the dragon power. It turned into a whirlwind of energy that raged around him, but it didn't cause any damage to him. Although the dragon power wasn't weak, long-range attacks often had lower power, and this attack was nothing to Tianyan. Tianyan could easily deal with 400 to 500 million attacks with a single slap. Immediately afterward, two figures flew towards Tianyan. The huge body of the dragon twisted in the air, and the golden dragon scales exuded a dazzling golden light, especially the 4 golden claws, which proved that it was a true dragon. It's the Imperial Guardian Divine Dragon, and there are 2 of them. The guards and cultivators of the World Dragon Empire exclaimed, and their eyes were filled with endless enthusiasm. They were willing to believe that the World Dragon Empire could win because of the Imperial Guardian Divine Dragon. The World Dragon Empire was protected by the Imperial Guardian Divine Dragon for generations, and the Imperial Guardian Divine Dragon's cultivation was extraordinary, reaching the 8th or 9th layer of the Spirit King stage. Just these 2 true dragons were enough to intimidate most of the Empire's forces. If these 2 true dragons were to make one round around the Empire's forces, they would probably be mostly destroyed. This was the reason why they were so confident. Moreover, there were 2 true dragons, one yellow and one silver, flying quickly. The World Dragon Grand Emperor and late Emperor Chen Xian were like immortals riding on a true dragon, soaring through the clouds. It was a sight to behold. This was simply too shocking. Normally, the Divine Dragon Protector would not be dispatched easily. Once it was dispatched, it would definitely destroy the target. That was equivalent to 4 Spirit King stage experts. No wonder the World Dragon Empire was so stubborn. However, 5 kings in a country did not include the 2 true dragons. If they were included, there would be 7 kings in a country. World Dragon Great Emperor, 8th layer Spirit King stage. Equipped with high-grade sacred artifact set. Has rich dragon bloodline in his body. Powerful enough to defeat a 9th layer Spirit King stage cultivator. The martial arts he knew included True Dragon God Claw, True Dragon Roar, and True Dragon God Technique. Weaknesses, none. Overall battle power, 860 million normal state. Former Emperor Chen Xian, peak of Spirit King stage, wearing a high-grade Saint artifact set, has a stronger dragon bloodline, which is close to the true dragon bloodline. When he unleashed his full power, he could be said to be a half-step holy king. The martial arts he knew included the True Dragon God Claw, True Dragon Roar, True Dragon God Technique, etc. Weaknesses, none. Its overall combat power was 1 billion. Normal state, Yellow Dragon, 8th layer Spirit King stage. Its scales are as thick as a high-grade sacred tool. It has 20% of the true dragon's bloodline. Weaknesses, none. Its overall combat power was 900 million. Silver Dragon, 8th layer Spirit King stage. Its scales are as thick as a high-grade sacred tool. It has 20% of the true dragon's bloodline. The strength of the 2 dragons was almost the same. However, they didn't have the strongest dragon bloodline, including the yellow dragon. It looked like a true dragon, but in fact it wasn't a true dragon. It was just a Jiao dragon with the true dragon's bloodline. Jiao dragon was a Jiao dragon, and a true dragon was a true dragon. The difference between the 2 was self-evident. They looked very similar. With 20% of the true dragon's bloodline, how could they not look similar? They would more or less look alike. As for their strength, if it was a real true dragon, it would be a lot stronger than them. For example, Tianyan's combat power was 900 million, but a real true dragon's combat power was 1 billion or 2 billion. If it used its bloodline, It would be able to crush any cultivator at the same level as it. So it's a Jiao dragon. What are you so arrogant about? Moreover, you have the dragon bloodline. If you don't have the dragon bloodline, you can still play around with me, but now that you have the dragon bloodline, how are you going to play around with me? Yi Tianyan sneered. The dragon god bloodline in his body belonged to the strongest level. He was the dragon god, and all the other dragons had to bow down to him. Unless they were from the imperial clan, then it would be a different story. Now that they had absorbed a little bit of the dragon bloodline, how could they call themselves a true dragon? He was simply a reptile. They quickly flew in front of Yi Tianyan and looked down at him. Their eyes were full of anger, but more than that, contempt. Heavenly Cloud's great emperor, I didn't expect you to personally attack the World Dragon Empire and destroy the city gate of our World Dragon Empire. You are trampling on the dignity of the World Dragon Empire. The World Dragon Great Emperor said coldly. His eyes were filled with anger. The two divine generals had a good relationship with them, and they were also the Imperial Protector divine generals. No matter how much Yi Tianyan begs for mercy, they will not let him go. They will only cut him into pieces. Guilty? What crime? Yi Tianyan looked at them coldly. We were kind enough to invite you to the World Dragon Empire as a guest, and we will choose a day to ascend to the throne. We will surely prosper for 1,000 years. Who knew that you would refuse us and kill our envoy and two divine generals? You took our kindness as a donkey's liver and lungs. Now you even came to attack our World Dragon Empire and destroyed the city wall. You still don't know your crime. The World Dragon Great Emperor tried to whitewash the matter and put all the blame on Yi Tianyan, which was a very nice way to put it. That's right. The Great Emperor has a good reputation for being easygoing, but you are biting the hand that feeds you. Guilty, guilty, guilty. The cultivators on the side began to shout loudly. With two powerhouses here, of course, they wouldn't be afraid of Yi Tianyan. So what if you know your crime? So what if you don't know your crime? Yi Tianyan ignored these people. If you know your crime, kneel on the ground and beg for forgiveness from the two divine generals, and we will leave your body intact. The World Dragon Great Emperor said coldly. If you resist, we will not only kill you on the spot and sacrifice you to the two divine generals, but we will also massacre the Heavenly Dragon Empire and the Heavenly Clouds Empire. Don't blame us for not being merciful enough. The World Dragon Great Emperor said in a dignified manner, as if Yi Tianyan had made a grave mistake. If Yi Tianyan resisted, then the World Dragon Great Emperor would destroy the two empires. Chapter 591. The more Yi Tianyan listened to the World Dragon Great Emperor's words, the colder his eyes became. Sure enough, the World Dragon Great Emperor was a great empire that could turn white into black, and black into white. This was their upbringing. Their shameless behavior was not unexpected at all. In fact, it was completely within his expectations. It would be a big mistake if they admitted their mistake in front of him. At that time, their prestige would be greatly reduced. No matter what, they couldn't admit their mistake. It's just that the World Dragon Great Emperor made Yi Tianyan look like a bad person who repaid kindness with enmity, which made Yi Tianyan very unhappy. I always thought that you were shameless, but who knew that you would be so shameless? Not only did you collude with the heavenly netherworld divine nation to stop me from ascending the throne, but you also want to take down my empire without using a single soldier. Did you get kicked in the head? How dare you say such a thing in front of me? Yi Tianyan sneered. You can lie to your people, but you dare to say such things to me? You want to be a benevolent emperor, but you secretly do such despicable things. You are really shameless. He had already seen through the World Dragon Great Emperor's true colors. They wanted to be benevolent emperors to the world. It was good to use this to rule the country, but it was just the surface. The inside was rotten to the point that it was disgusting. Wanting to take over everything with just a few words was just a pipe dream. Nonsense. Killing intent flashed in the World Dragon Great Emperor's eyes. Yi Tianyan's words had obviously pierced through his inner thoughts, but the World Dragon Great Emperor remained calm and said coldly, "It seems that you are stubborn. Don't blame us for killing you on the spot." That's right. Since you are still so stubborn, then let us, the World Dragon Great Emperor, enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Chen Xian looked at Yi Tianyan indifferently. In his eyes, Yi Tianyan was already a dead man. Under the encirclement of the two great imperial guardian divine dragons, as long as it wasn't a saint king, who could escape from them? Could Yi Tianyan have the cultivation of a saint king? They could feel that Yi Tianyan's cultivation was not that heaven-defying. At most, he was at the Spirit King stage. In the Spirit King stage, Chen Xian was already at the peak of the Spirit King stage, which was enough to suppress all cultivators below the peak of the Spirit King stage, not to mention he had the divine dragon to help him. Enforcing justice on behalf of heaven, the former emperor is invincible. Enforcing justice on behalf of heaven, the former emperor is invincible. The cultivators below shouted with passion. Most of them were righteous people, so they were influenced by these words and shouted loudly. In the eyes of the World Dragon Great Emperor was a benevolent emperor. Therefore, many experts joined the World Dragon Empire. Choosing to join a wise ruler would definitely be extremely beneficial to his future. Little did they know that the World Dragon Supreme Emperor did one thing on the surface and another on the inside. You want to put on a good show in front of everyone, but I don't want to do that. As long as I have a clear conscience and treat my own people well, that's enough. Yi Tianyan sneered. Unlike you, who is worse than trash. Stubborn. Kill him. The World Dragon Great Emperor roared, and immediately rushed towards Yi Tianyan on the yellow dragon. He wanted to shut Yi Tianyan's mouth and stop him from talking nonsense. If he continued to talk nonsense, his reputation would be ruined. As he rushed towards Yi Tianyan, the power of a human and a dragon fused together, and reached the realm of human and dragon unite. Golden light shone on the ground, and the whole World Dragon Imperial City. True Dragon Divine Art. The World Dragon Great Emperor's eyes flashed with golden light as he cast his strongest attack. He didn't know how strong Yi Tianyan was, but he knew that his cultivation was not low since he could kill two divine generals. Therefore, he immediately used his strongest attack. The true dragon as one turned into a golden bolt of lightning, streaking across the sky and striking down with unstoppable might. At this moment, the two of them were connected by blood as if they had fused into one. Both of them had the blood of the dragon clan, so their compatibility was naturally higher. Therefore, they could use the same move and crush the enemy with invincible momentum. In an instant, the battle power displayed by the body fusion martial art exploded and reached 1.9 billion battle power, which was terrifying. It was indeed a body fusion martial art. It could greatly enhance the strength of one's cultivation and reach a higher level. If it was used alone, there was absolutely no way to burst out such a powerful force. Only the attack of the body fusion martial art could burst out such a terrifying force. Retreat. Yi Tianyan roared and instantly released the dragon god's blood in his body. An extremely strong dragon power roared out from his body. The dragon power of a natural high-ranking expert of the dragon clan instantly suppressed the dragon bloodline in their bodies. A sense of fear immediately emerged in their hearts. This was a sense of fear of the high-ranking dragon clan. His originally invincible strength was so frightened by this roar that he took a few steps back. However, when he suddenly retracted the attack he had thrown out, he ended up being injured. Humph! They groaned and immediately suffered some internal injuries, but their eyes were filled with fear. The aura of a high-ranking expert of the dragon clan fiercely suppressed their dragon bloodline. It was like a raging storm in their hearts. They couldn't believe that the young man in front of them had a stronger dragon bloodline than them. This is the aura of the dragon god. Did he come from the heavenly realm? Emperor Chen Xian could feel the terrifying pressure coming from Yi Tianyan. If they couldn't use the dragon bloodline, then most of their strength would undoubtedly be suppressed. How could they fight under such circumstances? Their biggest advantage was the dragon bloodline. If they couldn't use it, their strength would be greatly reduced. But if they used it, it would be directly suppressed. Fear would automatically surge out of them, and no matter how much they tried to suppress it, it would be useless. This was the innate pressure of a high-ranking expert, and it had nothing to do with how much courage they had. The yellow dragon and the silver dragon's eyes were filled with fear. They actually retreated and didn't dare to attack Yi Tianyan. If they attacked Yi Tianyan, the power would be greatly reduced. At most, they could only use half of their strength. To Yi Tianyan, half of his strength was equivalent to 4th or 6th layer Spirit King stage, which was like cutting vegetables. With just a roar, they were forced to retreat. This scene was like a hand gripping everyone's neck, making them unable to shout. The invincible world dragon Great Emperor, whom they admired the most, was forced to retreat. Are you from the heavenly realm? The world dragon Great Emperor's heart sank. If Yi Tianyan was from the heavenly realm, then they really kicked an iron plate, and it was a very thick one. The heavenly realm's dragon race was at the level of a divine kingdom. What kind of kingdom has 5 kings? In front of a holy king, Yi Tianyan could kill them with a single slap. Although they couldn't relax, they could still send some of their strongest experts to deal with Yi Tianyan. Chapter 592. The suppression of a bloodline was very terrifying, especially at the level of the dragon race. If it was any other bloodline that was slightly better, the meaning would be very different in this world where there was such a serious natural class differentiation. So what if I am? Yi Tianyan sneered. He knew that they were a little timid. One's backer decided everything. If one had a powerful backer, even the World Dragon Empire would have to think twice before acting. Looking at Yi Tianyan's calm expression, their hearts sank. A person with such a strong dragon god bloodline was definitely not an ordinary person. There were plenty of ordinary dragon race bloodlines, but those who possessed the dragon god bloodline could be counted on one hand. Normally, it was impossible to even see one. Now they saw one, and it happened to be the World Dragon Empire, which made them feel very conflicted. The cultivators looked at each other, and did not know what was going on. They had already started fighting, but there was no movement after that. They did not know what was going on. Young friend, how about we let this matter go? The World Dragon Emperor suddenly said. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. They had been shouting to avenge the 2 divine generals, but now they had chosen to retreat. But now he had chosen to retreat. Many people were confused. It was normal that they did not know. If their level was too low, they would not understand a lot of things. As for the great emperors, they knew a lot about the underworld and the heaven realm, so they knew what kind of forces they would face. Although it was painful to lose 2 divine generals, they could only grit their teeth and swallow it. They could only choose to retreat in the face of a god nation. Yi Tianyan did not tell them his identity, but how could he be simple if he had the dragon god bloodline? Instead of taking a gamble, it was better to compromise and wait for the investigation to be done. The World Dragon Emperor had the same thought. Although he was still angry, he did not want to provoke a force from the heaven realm. If they did not go to the heaven realm, they might be safe. But if they did not go to the heaven realm, how could they become stronger? As for hiding in the underworld, it was meaningless. There were other passages between the underworld and the heaven realm, so the consequences of killing a descendant of the dragon god could be imagined. However, doing so would damage his reputation. There were so many cultivators watching. Compared to being destroyed by the god nation, they could only endure. You want to let it go, but I don't want to. Yi Tianyan smiled coldly. How could he not know what the other party was thinking? It was obvious that the other party had seen his dragon god bloodline, which was why he chose to avoid it. If he hadn't used it, they would have exploded and flattened him. The faces of the World Dragon Great Emperor and the others darkened. It seemed like the other party wanted to go against them. There must be some misunderstanding between us. Our World Dragon Empire has a good relationship with the Dragon Clan in the Heaven Realm. If we accidentally hurt our own people, it won't be a good thing. The World Dragon Emperor explained. Yi Tianyan's eyes lit up. It seemed like the World Dragon Empire had a good relationship with the Dragon Tribe. But thinking about it, it was true. Otherwise, how could there be such a bloodline? Ignore him. I don't know where he obtained this bloodline. Given our relationship with the dragon race, they'll definitely tell us if they send someone down. Emperor Chen Xian said coldly. The World Dragon Emperor was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes turned cold. Well, I almost fell into your trap. When I capture you, I'll extract the dragon god bloodline bit by bit. Their eyes were filled with greed. The dragon god bloodline was extremely rare, and it could be said to be the king's bloodline. Now that it had appeared in front of them, how could they not desire it? Once they extracted it and absorbed it, their strength would increase tremendously. Even in this place, they might be able to break through to the King Sage realm. I have never said that I am a member of the dragon tribe, right? It's just your wishful thinking. Yi Tianyan sneered. It seems like you have admitted it. That's good, that's good. Even if you have the dragon god bloodline to suppress our strength, do you think that's all we have? The World Dragon Supreme Lord roared, and a dragon spear appeared in his hand. It was covered with dense divine runes and inlaid with countless dragon scales. A terrifying dragon power was released from the dragon spear, and it was like a giant dragon that was about to take flight at any time, trying to break free from his hand. A divine artifact. Yi Tianyan narrowed his eyes, but it was within his expectations. As the #1 empire, it would be too outdated if it didn't even have a divine artifact. Although it was only a low-grade divine artifact, it was still much stronger compared to a sacred artifact. Eat my spear. The World Dragon Emperor roared angrily. He gripped the divine spear tightly and rushed over on the yellow dragon. He merged with the dragon once again, but this time, there was an additional dragon spear. With the help of the dragon spear, his strength increased tremendously. More importantly, it formed an indestructible dragon power, which fused the three of them together and produced a small amount of antibodies. Under the effect of the antibodies, the suppression effect was greatly reduced. Chen Er's compatibility with the dragon spear has increased again. Defeat him, then extract the dragon god bloodline and then... Chen Xian squinted his eyes and looked at Yi Tianyan from afar, and his heart was filled with excitement. He was excited at the thought of obtaining the dragon god bloodline. However, he did not stand at the side. His figure flashed, and he quickly flanked the World Dragon Emperor. He did not want to let the World Dragon Emperor fight alone. He did not want any accidents to happen, such as letting Yi Tianyan escape. This guy with the dragon god bloodline was like a treasure flying in the sky. The World Dragon Emperor is invincible. The World Dragon Emperor is invincible. The cultivators shouted again. Although they did not know what had happened just now, they were excited to fight again. A divine artifact is indeed a divine artifact. The power it displayed is indeed incomparable to a sage artifact. Yi Tianyan's eyes flashed with desire. Although he had a divine artifact, who would complain about having more divine artifacts? Facing the World Dragon Emperor, Yi Tianyan put his hands behind his back and did not take it seriously. He looked like he was scared out of his wits and did not know what to do. Even if you have the dragon god bloodline, you will still die. The World Dragon Emperor's eyes were burning with passion, and he was ready to kill the young man in front of him. Your strength is not bad, but it is still too weak. Yi Tianyan's eyes turned cold as he raised his fist and punched the World Dragon Great Emperor who was coming towards him. Dragon God Fist. He punched out the ultimate move of the Dragon God technique, and a huge dragon power instantly gathered in his hand. The sky immediately became heavier, and he could vaguely hear the roars of countless giant dragons as they bowed to him. The yellow dragon, who was suppressing his fear, once again showed fear in his eyes, but it was too late. Die. Chapter 593. Roar. A huge dragon god phantom appeared in the sky, followed by Yi Tianyan's punch. The dragon god was covered in red dragon scales, and its face was completely blurred. What could be seen was the overbearing phantom, enough to make 10,000 dragons worship it. Under this punch, the red pillar of light engulfed the lightning bolts that pierced through, and even engulfed a large area in front of it. Accompanied by a loud bang, the earth shook and the mountains shook. Chen Xian, who was behind Yi Tianyan, shouted. The terrifying power made his heart tremble. This is far beyond their power, reaching an even more terrifying realm. In an instant, everyone felt like the world was about to be destroyed. The earth shook, and several cracks began to appear on the ground. Many cultivators couldn't escape in time and fell into these cracks. This punch had indeed caused a lot of damage. It had a battle power of 3. 1 billion, far exceeding the battle power of 2 billion with the support of a divine artifact. It instantly killed the World Dragon Great Emperor and the Yellow Dragon. After the explosion dissipated, the World Dragon Great Emperor and Yellow Dragon were paralyzed on the ground. The punch had penetrated their bodies, and they lay dead in the huge pit. They didn't even have a chance to breathe. They were directly killed by the punch. Ing. Successfully killed the World Dragon Great Emperor, gaining 230 million EXP, 1300 Crazy Point, 3000 SPs. Obtain True Dragon Divine Claw, True Dragon Divine Art, True Dragon's Roar. Obtained items: True Dragon Bracelet, High-Grade Sacred Tool, True Dragon Armor, High-Grade Sacred Tool, True Dragon Boots, High-Grade Sacred Tool, Dragon God Bloodline 5th Grade. Thing. Successfully killed the Yellow Dragon, gaining 230 million EXP, 1300 Crazy Point, 1000 SPs. Obtained items: Dragon God Bloodline 5th Grade, True Dragon Scale Rare, True Dragon Soul Rare. Without mercy, Tianyan instantly killed 2 great experts. He didn't show any mercy, he killed both of them in an instant. The World Dragon Great Emperor is dead. The cultivators in the distance looked over and realized that the World Dragon Emperor and Huang Long, who were lying in the huge pit, had their bodies pierced through. They looked like they had been dismembered. Even though they were wearing sage artifact sets, it was useless. They were still killed by one punch. Armor wasn't invincible. The unstoppable energy pierced through the armor and heavily damaged their bodies. The key was that the power of 3 billion battle power was invincible. This was a power that could only be released by a holy king. Tianyan landed in the huge pit and quickly grabbed the dragon spear. Without a doubt, this divine weapon was now his. He had obtained another divine weapon. As expected of a divine weapon, it's practically a waste for it to fall into your hands. When Tianyan held it in his hand, the dragon spear let out a wung-wung sound and began to reject his power. The divine artifact already had a basic level of intelligence, so it would reject people other than its owner. Although the World Dragon Emperor was dead, his bloodline did not disappear, so the World Dragon Emperor was still its master. Suppress. Tianyan's eyes flashed, and the Dragon God bloodline in his body immediately rushed into the dragon spear. As soon as it rushed into the dragon spear, the power of the Dragon God bloodline was dispersed. How could the power of the World Dragon Great Emperor's bloodline resist his strongest bloodline power? So it was instantly crushed and successfully became the owner of the dragon spear. Chen Xian shouted in a hoarse voice. He never thought that the World Dragon Great Emperor couldn't even withstand a single blow from him. At this time he realized that he was facing a monster, not an ordinary Spirit King stage cultivator at all. But it was too late to regret now. The World Dragon Great Emperor was killed by Tianyan's punch. I will kill you. Chen Xian looked at Tianyan angrily. The dragon bloodline in his body burned crazily, and his power rose crazily. He revealed all of his trump cards and unleashed them all. He also held a long sword in his hand, and it was actually a low-grade god artifact. He didn't expect the World Dragon Empire to have a second divine artifact. But if he thought about it carefully, it wasn't surprising. It wasn't surprising that the World Dragon Empire had a second divine artifact. After all, the World Dragon Empire had a good relationship with the other forces in the Heaven Realm. If he didn't even have this, how could he be in charge of the World Dragon Empire? Boom! A pillar of light soared into the sky, and the silver dragon beneath him ignited its true dragon's blood, causing its power to surge. He was indeed worthy of being an old emperor. Coupled with the fact that his cultivation level was higher than the World Dragon Supreme Emperor's, his combat power increased crazily. 1 billion. 3 billion. 5 billion. 8 billion. 9 billion. Finally, Chen Xian's combat power stopped growing at 9 billion, and he was even stronger than the World Dragon Great Emperor. This kind of power was terrifying, and it had reached an unimaginable level. This wasn't just his own power. Instead, it was the power of the silver dragon he was riding on. Originally, they could have been a little stronger, but facing the power of the dragon god's bloodline, their power was suppressed by a small part. They definitely didn't have such powerful combat power, and their combat power was at most 4 billion, not 9 billion. True Dragon Crescent Moon Slash. Late Emperor Chen Xian was filled with rage as he slashed down heavily from the sky. The heavens and earth changed color as a silver bolt of lightning tore through the void with a whoosh. The space in the mortal realm wasn't as stable as the heaven realm, and under this terrifying impact, the void started to crack. Like a mirror, it kept shattering and falling. Everyone was dumbfounded. Such a powerful force, as expected of their former emperor. The realm of Human Dragon Unite is indeed amazing, but no matter how beautiful your moves are, they are all trash in front of me. Yi Tianyan didn't take out any weapons, nor did he use any earth-shattering moves. He only used crazy mode. Just the crazy mode was enough to make his battle power soar to the state of 3 billion. If not me, who else can do it? Dragon God Fist. Yi Tianyan's eyes turned cold. He leaped into the air and punched at the charging Chen Xian, not much different from before. The terrifying Dragon God Phantom appeared again, and everyone's expression changed. Even though this was the second time they saw it, they couldn't help but tremble. When the Dragon God appeared, many cultivators couldn't resist and knelt down. The pressure was so great that they couldn't move. Boom! The huge fist turned into a pillar of light, and Chen Xian's divine sword pierced through it. When the two collided, Chen Xian's attack actually split open a long section of the light pillar, but it was swallowed up by the terrifying light pillar in just a short while. Chapter 594. The terrifying beam of light pierced through the sky, and no one knew where it ended. Compared to this, they were more worried about Emperor Chen Xian's condition. They didn't know if he was dead or alive. In his previous life, the Great Dragon Emperor had been smashed into smithereens with a single punch. He couldn't have been more dead. Now, Emperor Chen Xian was also killed by a single punch. Could it be that he was killed by a single punch like the World Dragon Great Emperor? If that was really the case, then wouldn't he have reached the level of a Saint King if he had killed their Divine Dragon Protector and 2 Great Emperors with just 2 punches? No one would believe that Yi Tianyan reached the Holy King realm at such a young age. Cough, cough, cough. Immediately, a figure escaped from the side of the beam of light, but it was only Emperor Chen Xian. The silver dragon didn't escape. Obviously, it was dead. Ting. Successfully killed Silver Dragon. Reward: 230 million EXP, 13,000 Crazy Point, 1,300 SPS. Obtained items: Silver Dragon Soul, Silver Dragon Scale, Silver Dragon Ring, Mid-Grade Sacred Tool. The Silver Dragon Ring and the True Dragon Bracelet that he had obtained earlier were both good items. Silver Dragon Ring increases defense by 10 times, strength by 10 times, critical hit rate by 10%. Consumes 5,000 Crazy Point to release Silver Dragon Shield. Can resist the attack of a Spirit King Stage Cultivator for 5 minutes. Cooldown time is 1 hour. True Dragon Bracelet increases power by 25 times, 20% critical hit rate by 10%. Consumes 5,000 Crazy Point to release True Dragon Power. Increases power by 30 times. Lasts for 5 minutes. Cooldown time is 1 hour. Good stuff. Yi Tianyan's eyes lit up. These were really top-notch goods. Originally, he had already reached the limit of his outfit. He couldn't wear all of the sacred tools. The bracelets had always been empty, and they were all ordinary trash from before. Now they could finally be replaced. Yi Tianyan then replaced the ring and bracelet, and his combat power instantly increased a lot. Just these accessories alone were better than the previous set. Immediately, he shifted his gaze to Emperor Chen Xian. At this time, Emperor Chen Xian was in a very bad situation. Although he wasn't dead, he looked like he was half dead. Fortunately, his cultivation was strong, or else he would have been killed by Yi Tianyan's punch. Emperor Chen Xian had survived, but his steed was dead. He was no longer a threat. What power? Chen Xian floated down from the sky. He couldn't even stand properly. In his current state, it was already a miracle that he could even remain standing. At this moment, apart from anger, he was more occupied by fear. He had given everything he had. Yet he still couldn't block this attack. What divine weapon? What dragon clan bloodline? They were all destroyed by this punch. It was undeniable that divine artifacts were very powerful, but in a situation where the opponent was extremely powerful, it was meaningless. This was like a child holding a divine weapon. Without any power, how could he fight against an adult? In a situation where the disparity in strength was too great, it was impossible to rely on a divine artifact to make up for it. The late emperor has been defeated. They were dumbfounded. Their only hope had been defeated just like that, and it was a complete defeat. All the people the World Dragon Empire relied on were dead. Only Emperor Chen Xian was left. Although he did not die, Yi Tianyan was completely fine. What was the difference between that and death? How is this possible? We are in the World Dragon Empire, the most powerful empire. Where did this brat come from? Where did he come from? Is he from the Heaven Realm? But are all the people from the Heaven Realm so strong? They felt a deep sense of powerlessness. From the beginning, they believed that the World Dragon Empire would win. No matter how many enemies came, they would be easily defeated. But now they were completely defeated with just 2 punches. Are you a Saint King stage cultivator? Chen Xian's eyes were filled with disbelief. He was so young, yet he was already a Saint King stage cultivator. What's more, he was still staying here. After reaching the Saint King stage, there was no future for him to stay here. If he was half a step into the coffin, he could still stay here until he died. But the problem was that Yi Tianyan was so young, he was a fool to stay here. The spiritual power here was thin, and it was difficult to improve if one stayed here for a long time. Spirit King stage cultivators like them could still improve by staying here. After all, the resources of the entire mortal world belonged to them, so there was no need to fear that they wouldn't be able to improve. If Chen Xian was a Saint King stage cultivator, the most terrifying thing was that no one had seen him for so long. After enduring for so many years, he suddenly erupted, and his position as the strongest empire was gone. What do you think? Yi Tianyan said coldly. From now on, the World Dragon Empire will no longer exist. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for provoking me. I wanted to establish an empire, but you listened to the heavenly netherworld divine nation, and came to destroy my empire. Don't blame me for being ruthless. Chen Xian's pupils shrank, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. If there was a medicine for regret, he would never do such a thing. But the matter was already settled, and it was useless to say anything. Immediately, Yi Tianyan didn't say anything more. He raised his palm and covered it with his palm, and a terrifying beam of light penetrated it. He wouldn't let go of Chen Xian, no matter who it was. He had always been a vengeful person, so anyone who dared to attack him should be prepared to die. Chen Xian looked at the oncoming attack, and he could only show despair in his eyes. He was unwilling to die like this, and he couldn't avenge his son. Friend, let's forget about this. At some point in time, a figure suddenly appeared at the side. With a light wave of his hand, the attack was dispersed, turning into countless specks of light that drifted away. Yi Tianyan's eyes narrowed. He didn't use his full strength in this attack, but it had more than 1 billion battle power. Yet it was scattered by a single slap. Chen Feng, first layer Saint King stage, wearing a high-grade sacred tool suit, has the power of a saint's soul. Old age near the end of life, power decline. Martial arts, True Dragon God Claw, True Dragon Roar, True Dragon God Secret Art. Weakness, none. Comprehensive combat power. 1. 8 billion normal state. Saint King stage has almost twice the combat power of a peak Spirit King stage cultivator. The main reason was that Chen Feng was old, and his strength had greatly declined. Of course, he couldn't use his full strength. It was estimated that he used some kind of power to forcibly break through, so he could be regarded as a fake Saint King. Even so, his combat power was still very amazing. It had reached 1.8 billion, and if he used his full strength, his combat power would definitely exceed 3 billion. Sure enough, Saint King stage's combat power was terrifying. Chapter 595. Yi Tianyan wasn't surprised to see the old man. The World Dragon Empire's foundation was amazing, and it seemed like the great old ancestor was the real foundation of the World Dragon Empire. Although the Saint King stage was not in its complete form, it was still much stronger than the Spirit King stage cultivators. Grand old ancestor. Emperor Qinshian knelt down and breathed a sigh of relief. What was there to be afraid of now that his strongest backer had appeared? The great old ancestor wouldn't appear unless the World Dragon Empire was on the brink of destruction. Now that the great old ancestor had appeared, it meant that the World Dragon Empire was facing destruction. So many Spirit King stage cultivators had died. And if one more died, who could support the World Dragon Empire? The great old ancestor had no problem in ruling the empire, but how long could he last? Even if he broke through to the Saint King stage, he wouldn't have much lifespan left. The ministers of the World Dragon Empire were relieved to see the great old ancestor had appeared. Although the World Dragon Great Emperor was dead, they couldn't let Emperor Qinshian die as well. If the World Dragon Empire continued like this, they wouldn't even have a single Spirit King stage cultivator left in the empire. The great old ancestor has appeared. That kid is dead for sure. I heard that the great old ancestor has broken through to the Saint King stage. I heard that old ancestor has already broken through to the Saint King stage. This is the Saint King stage. Saint King stage. When can I break through to the Saint King stage? Stop dreaming. If you can break through to the Spirit King stage, you'll be able to thank the heavens. The cultivators on the side looked at Yi Tianyan with sad eyes. They felt that no matter how arrogant he was, someone would be able to subdue him. Sigh. The great old ancestor sighed deeply as he looked at the corpse lying in the big pit in the distance. Since it has already happened, why don't you just let it go? Great old ancestor, this is your grandson. He killed him. Are you going to let him go just like that? Emperor Qinshian was stunned. He thought that the great old ancestor would suppress Yi Tianyan, but he didn't expect that the great old ancestor would choose to reconcile with him. Wouldn't this be the same as the old sending off the young? Watching helplessly as the enemy left? The supreme old ancestor paid no attention to him. Instead, he looked at Yi Tianyan with a burning gaze and said in a deep voice, "How about giving me some face? If we really fight, I believe that no one will be able to gain any advantage, right? A Saint King stage master?" Yi Tianyan looked at the old man and smiled. "After beating up the little one, you want to help me? I don't think your face is that big. If my cultivation was weak, I believe you wouldn't even give me a chance to talk and would directly kill me, right?" It wasn't that the supreme old ancestor didn't want to make a move, but he didn't dare to. His lifespan was coming to an end, and if he were to fight with Yi Tianyan, his lifespan might decrease by quite a bit. Although his heart was also filled with anger, he could sense that his opponent's cultivation was very strong. Even he couldn't deal with him easily. Under such circumstances, he could only choose to endure. "Ancestor, shut up," the supreme old ancestor said. "If I can't endure, I'm afraid that this little brat's cultivation is also at the Saint King stage. If I fight with him, I may not be able to gain any advantage. The key is that he is much younger than me, so I definitely can't fight a protracted battle. The best way is to compromise for now. Wait until you break through to the Saint King stage, then we can join forces to kill him. So for now, no matter what, you have to endure. After you break through, the next time will be the day they die." The supreme old ancestor would definitely choose to send a message to Yang Kai instead of saying it out loud. Former Emperor Qinshian gritted his teeth and looked at Yi Tianyan hatefully, but he could only nod his head and admit that he was right. He also felt that Yi Tianyan's strength was very strong, and if he used it, it wouldn't be much different from his own supreme old ancestor. In this state, he really didn't dare to fight at will. Just as the supreme old ancestor was about to explain the situation to Yi Tianyan, a figure had already rushed over. The domineering dragon god phantom appeared, and there was an even stronger phantom that enveloped the dragon god phantom. This phantom was Yi Tianyan's own phantom. After using his own phantom, the dragon god phantom turned into a red armor that covered his body, and his aura instantly increased several times. His combat strength soared crazily, and he was now in a state where he could kill even gods. In the blink of an eye, He appeared in front of them and punched towards Emperor Chen Xian. Everything was too sudden, and before they could even finish speaking, Yi Tianyan had already rushed over, shocking everyone. Looking at the incoming fist, Emperor Chen Xian's pupils shrank. Once again, he felt that death was so close to him. "Don't even think about it," the supreme old ancestor roared, and with a light flip of his hand, golden light flashed, and thick golden dragon scales quickly covered his palm. He was still a person who devoured the blood essence of the dragon race to cultivate, but against the dragon god bloodline, there was only one result: suppression. Scram! Yi Tianyan snorted coldly and punched out, not even bothering to dodge. Boom! The supreme old ancestor was sent flying, and he couldn't even block the attack. Following that, Yi Tianyan's fist came crashing down, smashing straight into Emperor Chen Xian's chest. No! Emperor Chen Xian raised his hands to block with all his might, and the desire to live welled up in his heart. But all of this was meaningless. He couldn't even block a single punch from afar, let alone a punch like this. Die! Yi Tianyan's fist blossomed with a dazzling light, engulfing Chen Xian's body. Boom! Another beam of light soared into the sky, penetrating the thick clouds, and then blasting the thick clouds into nothingness. Xian'er! The supreme old ancestor's eyes widened. He hadn't expected Yi Tianyan to kill his own son right in front of him. "You want to reconcile with me? If I didn't resist your attack, my empire and my people would have perished a long time ago," Yi Tianyan said coldly. Yi Tianyan's eyes were cold. Yi Tianyan wanted him to reconcile with just one sentence. It was a joke. If he didn't kill the main person, how could he establish his authority? If he gave up just like that, the Heavenly Cloud's empire wouldn't have the right to speak anymore. Anyone who provoked him, no matter who helped him, would only have one way to go, and that was death. "You killed Xian. I will make you pay with your life," the supreme old ancestor roared, and the golden dragon bloodline in his body was released crazily. Thick golden dragon scales stacked on top of each other, and the power that erupted was far beyond the world dragon great emperor's power. The purity of the golden dragon bloodline in his body was even higher, and as a supreme old ancestor, it was only natural for him to have such power. However, Yi Tianyan wasn't afraid at all. He knew that killing Emperor Chen Xian would definitely anger the other party. He didn't regret it at all. What Saint King stage powerhouse? He would kill him with one punch. Chapter 596. The great old master was completely enraged. The golden dragon blood in his body began to burn as if there was no end to it. After the burning, his combat power increased crazily, and his whole body started to become younger. His originally shriveled body became elastic and shiny. Crack, crack. The sound of metal colliding came from the grand old ancestor's body, and in the blink of an eye, he turned from a shriveled old man to a mature and handsome middle-aged man. His white hair turned black, and his face became smooth and elastic. Even his height increased greatly, and he became a tall and handsome man. All of this caused the surrounding people to be flabbergasted. How could he suddenly become so young? He was clearly in a half-dead state, but he suddenly became so young and full of vitality. Yi Tianyan was not surprised by this. It was not that the grand old ancestor had really become younger, but that he had burned his blood and qi to forcibly restore his youthful state. Only in this way could he unleash his strongest power, but once it ended, his lifespan would be greatly reduced. If it was a protracted battle, he would die before the battle was over. This was the case for the grand old ancestor. For the sake of revenge, he chose to unleash his full power. "I want you dead." The grand old ancestor's voice became deep and charming, and a long spear appeared in his hand. This long spear was stronger than all the world dragon great emperor's previous divine weapons. Primordial ancient dragon spear. Low-grade divine weapon, forged with the blood essence and dragon bones of a primordial ancient dragon. When attacking, it is like a crazed primordial ancient dragon, unstoppable. Another divine artifact. The entire world dragon empire actually had 3 divine weapons. Their foundation was terrifying. However, Yi Tianyan was not surprised that there was one more divine weapon, unless it was a middle-grade divine weapon. It was still a low-grade divine weapon, which was only ordinary to him, but to others, it was very terrifying. There are many people who want me dead, and you will not be the first, and you will not be the last. Tianyan did not have any weapons in his hand, and he did not hold any treasures. He just faced the grand old ancestor. Very well, today will be the anniversary of your death next year. The Grand Supreme Elder's voice was as cold as the ice in a bottomless abyss. He raised the primordial dragon spear in his hand and pointed it at him. Take out your weapon. I'll give you a chance to fight me fair and square. Weapon? I don't need any weapons to deal with you. Tianyan looked at the senior old master and smiled calmly. It wasn't that he was too arrogant, but he didn't need a weapon at all. Wearing the ring and bracelet was already enough for him to burst out with extremely terrifying power, so he didn't need any weapons at all. Moreover, who said that a Saint King stage master must be very powerful? The supreme old ancestor in front of him could only be considered ordinary. Even if he burns his blood essence now, his battle power will only increase to 2 billion battle power, and he doesn't need any weapons. Just by relying on crazy mode, it is enough to reach more than 3 billion. That was his previous state. Now that he wore the accessory, his combat power skyrocketed, reaching an astonishing level. Good. Instead of being angry, the Supreme Elder laughed. He gripped the desolate ancient dragon spear tightly and looked at him coldly. Arrogant. Then I will teach you how to be a good person. You will know that there is always someone better out there. Teach me how to be a good person. With your half-baked Saint King stage cultivation? It is reasonable to say that you are not even a Saint King stage cultivator. At most, you are at the peak of Spirit King stage, but you forcibly broke through, causing your lifespan to not increase, and instead you are already half a step into the coffin. After this battle, whether you live or die, you won't be able to hold on for long. Tianyan's words revealed the senior old master's situation, which made the senior old master's face change. He didn't expect Tianyan to know so much about him. In a sense, he was a Saint King stage cultivator, but he wasn't. His combat power reached the standard, but his path was wrong, so he couldn't be a Saint King stage cultivator. When other Spirit King stage cultivators break through to Saint King stage, their lifespan will increase by hundreds or thousands of years, but the senior old master's lifespan will decrease. It's more than enough to deal with you. The senior old master's eyes became cold, and he didn't want to talk to Tianyan anymore. The more he talked, the more he would expose his problem, especially now that he couldn't hold on for long. If he continued for too long, he would definitely lose his life. Boom! He stomped on the ground, and the primordial dragon spear became one with his spear. A primordial divine dragon merged with him, and a primordial aura was released from his body. Everywhere it went became a barren wasteland. The weeds on the ground withered in an instant. Boundless life force surged over and drilled into his body. The terrifying desolate ancient power made everyone's face change. If they were standing nearby, their skin would quickly dry up. If they stayed for a long time, they would become a dried corpse. When the senior old master sprinted over, layers of desert storms quickly rolled up on the ground, shrouding his body. At the same time, a huge shadow appeared behind him, and a golden desert dragon galloped on the ground. The golden desert dragon crazily swung its giant tail. The senior old master had completely merged with the golden desert dragon, and no one could tell which one was the senior old master. His battle power skyrocketed and suddenly exploded to 3.5 billion battle power. This is his ultimate power, and it's a shocking number. Kill him. Kill him. Avenge the World Dragon Great Emperor. Yes, for the dignity of our World Dragon Empire, the senior old master will kill him. This time he is dead. Avenge the former emperor. One by one, they shouted in support of the senior old master. Interesting. If it's that easy, then it would be too boring. Tianyan wanted to see what his current limit is. He didn't use any weapons, just his fists, and with a lot of power, he doesn't know how strong he can be. Dragon God Bloodline activate. Crazy Mode activate. True Dragon Bracelet Silver Dragon Ring activate. All the effects were activated, and after a large amount of Crazy Point was absorbed, his combat power increased explosively. 3 billion, 5 billion, 7 billion, 9 billion, 1 billion combat power. Finally it stopped at 1 billion combat power. His fist condensed all the power in it, and the surrounding space trembled. The senior old master didn't even use his fist, but the terrifying power already spread all over the space, shaking the world. His whole body has been covered with dragon scales, and it looks like a thin layer of dragon scales stuck to his body. But such a thin dragon armor gives people a feeling that it's indestructible. You are just a worm, and you dare to be arrogant in front of me. Immediately after, he raised his hand, and with a bang, a large shadow immediately appeared behind him. As he waved his hand, the shadow also swung its giant palm and slammed down. Bang! Chapter 597. The Grand Supreme Old Ancestor's power was very overbearing, but Yi Tianyun's power was even more overbearing. His huge palm slammed down from the sky and smashed the desert golden dragon to the ground. All the sand that had condensed together was smashed into pieces, and a sandstorm instantly enveloped the entire area. The sky was dark, and nothing could be seen. Everyone in the Heaven Dragon Imperial City was affected by this terrifying impact. Those who were slightly closer to the Imperial City were blown away by a strong gust of wind. Whether it was houses or people, everything was blown away. Those who were slightly further away could still feel the earth shaking, and the sky was covered by a layer of sand. It was pitch black, as if it was the end of the world. What the hell is going on? Everyone's eyes were focused on the scene in front of them. No one knew what the result was. They only saw Yi Tianyun's huge palm pressing down on their Grand Supreme Old Ancestor to the ground. They still didn't know whether their Grand Supreme Old Ancestor had lost, but in their hearts, they admitted that Yi Tianyun had won. That palm was too terrifying, and its overbearing power was unstoppable. If they were on the ground, they would have been smashed into meat paste. They didn't expect that there would be someone else in this world who possessed such terrifying power other than their Grand Supreme Old Ancestor. However, they didn't want to admit this result. They thought that their Grand Supreme Old Ancestor was fine and could still fight. Maybe he could even fight back and save the entire World Dragon Empire. When the sand and dust cleared, everyone could finally see what was happening in front of them. An incomparably huge palm print was on the ground, as if a giant had just pressed down with his palm. The terrifying power made everyone gasp in shock. It was really a power that could destroy the world with a wave of his hand. When they were looking for their Grand Supreme Old Ancestor, a figure stood up shakily from the ground. Only then did they see that it was their Grand Supreme Old Ancestor who had stood up. Grand Supreme Old Ancestor is fine. Grand Supreme Old Ancestor is fine. They cheered. As long as their Grand Supreme Old Ancestor was still alive, the World Dragon Empire would still have hope. However, when they could see clearly, the Grand Supreme Old Ancestor in front of them had become extremely old. Obviously, he had reached his limit. After using his most powerful killer move, his lifespan had basically been exhausted. Now he had become an old man who was about to die at any time. This situation was like a hand strangling their necks, and they couldn't stop cheering. How could they still have the strength to fight? It was useless for them to live. Why are you so strong? Have you already reached the second or third stage of the Saint King stage? The highest old ancestor's eyes were filled with horror. This was a complete crushing effect. He didn't even need a weapon to crush him, so how could he not be terrified? Although Yi Tianyun didn't have a weapon, he didn't need a weapon, he couldn't help but feel terrified. If he had a weapon, the Grand Supreme Old Ancestor, he would have been killed by him. Grand Supreme Old Ancestor. Yi Tianyun squinted his eyes. He thought that his one punch was enough to kill the opponent. He didn't expect the opponent to be able to withstand it. It's really a bit strong. However, he knew why the other party was able to survive. The shattered necklace was the best proof. This could be considered a protective artifact, a treasure that could withstand attacks. If not for this item, he would have been killed in a single punch, just like Emperor Chen Xian and the others. But it's over. Let's end it. Yi Tianyun's eyes were cold. He didn't show any mercy to the old ancestor. The old ancestor looked like a kind man, but he was cruel and merciless. If he let the old ancestor go, it would be like letting a tiger return to the mountain. Immediately after, he punched out, and a chi dragon twisted its body and whizzed forward. Just as it was about to hit the ancestor, the other party ruthlessly crushed a jade pendant, and actually turned into a ray of light that flew towards the heavenly dragon imperial capital. Its speed is even faster than Yi Tianyin's attack, but Yi Tianyin dodged it easily. Heaven evasion divine talisman? Yi Tianyin was stunned. The Grand Supreme Old Ancestor really had a lot of treasures. He even had such a rare Heaven Evasion Divine Talisman. The Heaven Evasion Divine Talisman could increase one's speed by several times in an instant. It was an escape tool, but it couldn't last for long. Want to escape? Yi Tianyin stepped forward and chased after the Old Ancestor at a faster speed. He wouldn't show mercy. Stop him. Save the Old Ancestor. At this time, the guards quickly intercepted them. Even though they knew they couldn't win, they still wanted to save the Old Ancestor. It was clear that they were quite loyal. However, Yi Tianyin wouldn't show mercy. Anyone who stopped him would die. Scram. Yi Tianyin's eyes turned cold. He waved his hand, and a chi ray rolled out. The guards that charged at him were blasted into a mist of blood. They were easily killed. When the Grand Supreme Old Ancestor flew back, he roared. In an instant, the entire World Dragon Imperial capital lit up. All the formations on the ground were lit up, causing many cultivators to exclaim, "The Old Ancestor still has trump cards. He can still fight." I knew the Old Ancestor wouldn't admit defeat so easily. He will definitely win this time. The Old Ancestor is invincible. The Old Ancestor is invincible. They shouted crazily. They still thought that the World Dragon Empire was invincible. They didn't want to lose to a newly established empire. After a while, they couldn't shout anymore. The Divine Rune Grand Array on the ground froze them in place. A terrifying energy was constantly sucking out the blood essence from their bodies. This wasn't just a small portion, but everyone in the imperial capital was being crazily sucked out of their blood essence. In an instant, the entire World Dragon Empire was covered in a red light. The blood chi kept being sucked out of the Old Ancestor's body, greatly increasing his strength. Under the rich blood chi, the Old Ancestor started to regain his youthful appearance. He looked like he was intoxicated. This is the feeling. This time, I can finally put this formation to use. The Old Ancestor's mental state recovered a lot. He immediately opened his mouth and roared at the cultivator in front of him. Under the violent tremor, the cultivator turned into a mist of blood and rushed into his mouth to recover his blood chi. Bloodthirsty mad demon art. Yi Tianyin, who caught up with the Old Ancestor, squinted his eyes. He thought it was something special when he found out that the Old Ancestor had this unique skill. It turned out that it was absorbing the blood chi of others and turning it into his own strength. For a moment, the entire World Dragon Imperial capital was filled with screams. Those who could move fled, while those who couldn't could only wait for death. Many people looked at the Old Ancestor in fear. If this continued, they would all die. Old Ancestor, what are you doing? If this continues, we will all die. What kind of evil martial art is this? Is he trying to suck out everyone's blood chi? Their hearts were trembling. In the face of death, their hearts were filled with fear. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.